Chapter 2093. If you don't believe me, then don't believe me, the middle-aged man, Fong Bogu, said coldly. His expression was ice-cold, pushing people 1,000 miles away, but Murong Cho ignored him and continued. This won't do. I can't let others look down on you, senior brother Fong. So I brought him here to broaden his horizons. Tell me, what's the matter? Fong Bogu pointed to the opposite side. Murong Cho sat down at the stone table, and Chu Li followed suit. Chu Li said, I'm with UNC. I have a huge grudge against the Profound Heart sect and am being hunted down. That's why I'd like to hear more about the Profound Heart sect. Although there are introductions in the sect, it's hard to tell if it's real or fake because the Profound Heart sect is cunning. Fake and real, real and fake. This is Profound Heart sect. Fong Bogu said in a deep voice. No one knows if what they say is true or false. It is unfathomable. What do you want to know? I want to know what kind of powerful martial arts they have, and if there's any way to counter them, Chu Li said. Fong Bogu said, Mystic Heart sect's most powerful technique is the Linglong technique, followed by the heart-shattering palm, and of course the Sacred Heart palm. Chu Li asked, I heard that there's also the soul separation palm. Yes, the departed soul palm can also be considered an ultimate skill of the sect, but it's a pity that it's difficult to practice and master, so there aren't many people who practice it, Fong Bogu said. Those who aren't fully confident won't practice the departed soul palm. Chu Li muttered, Can we learn the soul separation palm? You want to learn the departed soul palm? Fong Bogu looked him up and down, then shook his head and said, I'm not looking down on your flying heaven sect, but your heart technique is completely different from the Linglong tactics. You won't be able to learn the departed soul palm. Chu Li said disappointedly. Other than the Profound Heart sect, is there no one else who can cultivate the soul separation palm? Soul separation palm. Fong Bogu pondered for a moment, then stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. Chu Li looked at Murong Cho. Murong Cho waved his hand, indicating that they should not disturb Fong Bogu, and also stared at him. Fong Bogu seemed to be thinking, searching through the memories in his mind. After a long while, Fong Bogu said in a deep voice, It is possible that the soul-parting palm was passed on to outsiders. Chu Li perked up. He had always felt that Huang Heming's death was a little strange. It seemed like Profound Heart sect was the one who killed him, and Profound Heart sect might have wanted to kill him as well. If they encountered Huang Heming, they might not spare him. However, he felt that Huang Heming didn't die at the hands of Profound Heart sect. He had a great enmity with the Profound Heart sect, but he wanted to help them get off the hook. It was somewhat unreasonable. At the end of the day, he did not want the Flying Heaven sect to descend into chaos or even lose its power. Instead, he wanted to smoothly climb to a higher position in the Flying Heaven sect. Then, stirring up a storm would be as easy as lifting 1,000 caddies with little effort. Fong Bogu sat down, picked up the wine pot, poured himself a cup, and drank it in one gulp. A disciple of the Profound Heart sect left the sect and married a disciple of the Heavenly Wind sect. Since then, she has been living in seclusion within the sect and has never left the sect. This isn't something strange, right? Murong Cho laughed. Could it be that the Profound Heart sect disciple leaked the Profound Heart sect's martial arts? Impossible. This kind of marriage between sect disciples was not rare. In fact, it was very common. For example, 9th senior brother and 9th senior sister-in-law. 9th senior sister-in-law did not reveal any of the Dancing Butterfly sect's martial arts. Every disciple had to take a fiend god oath when they entered the sect, and they could not violate it. She died a long time ago, Fong Bogu said coldly. Die? Murong Cho was surprised. Could it be the Profound Heart sect's doing? Yes, Fong Bogu said. It was the Profound Heart sect who assassinated her. And then? Murong Cho said. Could it be that she leaked the Profound Heart sect's martial arts before she died? Do you think that's possible? Fong Bogu said. If you were assassinated by the sect, would you still protect the sect's martial arts before you died? Or would you leak it out of anger? I don't know. Murong Cho shook his head. Fong Bogu said, You don't know this. As a woman, she is more vengeful. How could she not take revenge? Murong Cho slowly nodded. So, the Heavenly Wind sect also received the profound heart sex inheritance? Even if they can't get all of it, they should have at least a part of it. But this is only a guess. No one can be sure. This is a secret among secrets. Moreover, it's not a big deal. Not many people pay attention to it, Feng Bogu said. Murong Cho looked at Chu Li. Chu Li pondered. The Heavenly Wind sect, after he went back the last time, he deliberately looked for some books to read. He knew a lot of general knowledge. The Heavenly Wind sect was also one of the top sections. It was similar to the Flying Heaven sect, and the relationship between the two sects was not good. The Flying Heaven sect's light body technique was unique. Moreover, the Flying Heaven demon technique was agile and subtle. It was impossible to defend against it. The Heavenly Wind sect was also proficient in light body technique. Their martial arts relied on speed to achieve victory. They were as fast as a gust of wind. As the saying goes, those in the same trade are enemies. Because both sects sought speed, they were not convinced of each other's superiority. They wanted to suppress the other sect. Unfortunately, the martial arts of both sects were about the same. No one could suppress the other. Murong Cho said, Wu Yuanci, why do you want to know about the soul separation poem? Chu Li sighed. Feng Bo Gu said, Huang Hemming from the Flying Heaven sect died from the soul separation poem. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and looked at Feng Bo Gu. Feng Bo Gu waved his hand. I originally knew that Huang Hemming was killed. As for who killed him, I didn't know. It seems that it was most likely the Heavenly Wind sect. Chu Li sighed. It's really hard to say. Feng Bo Gu scoffed. The Heavenly Wind sect holds a deep grudge against you. If there's a chance to kill you, they won't let it go. Chu Li nodded slowly. Are you going to the Heavenly Wind sect? I'll go with you. I'll meet the Heavenly Wind sect, Murong Cho said. Then be careful. The Heavenly Wind sect is ruthless. They'll try to kill you, Feng Bo Gu said. Don't worry, senior brother. Murong Cho nodded. After the two left the courtyard, Chu Li said, Brother Murong, I'll return to the sect to report this news. Go. Murong Cho waved his hand. Don't forget to call me if you're going to the Heavenly Wind sect. Chu Li smiled. I'd like to see the sword technique of your sect. I'll be back soon. He fist saluted and fluttered away. He then teleported back to the Flying Heaven sect and entered the basilica to meet Zhao Lingfeng. Zhao Lingfeng was deep in thought in the basilica. He was as still as a statue. After he entered, Zhao Lingfeng only raised his head after a while. Chu Li fist saluted and told him about the news he received from Feng Bo Gu. Yuan Si, do you think it's the Heavenly Wind sect? Zhao Lingfeng frowned. Is it a provocation? Chu Li said, That's my intuition, but whether it's true or not, we'll have to investigate carefully. If that's the case, we really can't declare war. Zhao Lingfeng scoffed. The Heavenly Wind sect must be prepared and eyeing us. Chu Li said, Yes, I also think this is easy to investigate. We just need to see if they're preparing for war. We've neglected the Heavenly Wind sect recently. They're deliberately weakening their presence to make us relax. They must have planned this beforehand and seized this rare opportunity. Zhao Lingfeng said. Chu Li nodded slowly. The Heavenly Wind sect. I'll send someone to investigate. Zhao Lingfeng said. Chu Li fist saluted and was about to leave. Yuan Si, you're very good. Zhao Lingfeng nodded in satisfaction and sized him up. It's rare that you're so diligent, and it's even rarer that you're able to find such secret information. Chu Li looked embarrassed. I'm just lucky that the Sword Demon sect has Feng Bo Gu. This Feng Bo Gu is very famous, but people outside of the Sword Demon sect have only heard of his name but never seen him. Zhao Lingfeng smiled. This is also your opportunity. Chapter 2094. Chu Li frowned. Sect leader, how did Feng Bo Gu do this? He doesn't seem to have a strong cultivation level. He mastered the Wonder Heart Sword, Zhao Lingfeng said slowly. This sword technique was created by nature and can only be found by chance. The Wonder Heart Sword. Chu Li thought about it, but did not have this memory. He had never heard of such a sword technique in the Demon Sword faction. Zhao Lingfeng said, As far as I know, the Wonder Heart Sword is not a direct martial art of the Demon Sword faction. It is a very obscure sword technique that was thrown in the corner of the Demon Sword faction's sutra library. Because there is no way to cultivate it, almost no one has mastered it. I didn't expect him to finally master it. Chu Li smiled. This is a fortuitous encounter. Zhao Lingfeng nodded. A sword technique like the Wonderheart sword is not destined by fate. It is a fortuitous encounter. Ordinary people cannot master it. But if they do, it will have unimaginable power. Chu Li asked, "Can he see through people's hearts?" "More or less." Zhao Lingfeng nodded. Candlelight Cave is quiet, and there is no place for him to hide. That is why he knows many secrets that ordinary people do not. There is almost nothing that can be hidden from him. Chu Li frowned. That is too dangerous. Zhao Lingfeng shook his head. It is not that strong. He cannot see through those with high cultivation levels. He can only see through the hearts of those with low cultivation levels, so the threat is not that great. Chu Li sighed. With my cultivation level, he can't see through me, right? I can't. Zhao Lingfeng smiled. Feng Bogu's cultivation level is very low. He can see through those below second rate. He can't do anything to first-rate masters. Chu Li said, he can remember so many things. It is quite a skill. Retentive memory, Zhao Lingfeng said. Chu Li shook his head. No wonder he can master the Wonderheart sword. He is naturally intelligent, far more than ordinary people. There is no helping it. Zhao Lingfeng smiled. But there are good and bad things in everything. The Wonderheart sword also hinders his cultivation level. Chu Li nodded slowly. He then returned to the Demon Sword faction. When he arrived at the bottom of the mountain, he walked straight up. Two disciples in green saw him and bowed. They did not stop him, knowing that he was Murong Chao's friend. He had just entered the Sword Demon sect when he was stopped by Murong Chou. Murong Chou suddenly came out from a training field in the forest and waved at him. Chu Li followed him to the training field and saw three youths in the middle of the field, slowly practicing their swordsmanship. Didn't you want to see our sect's sword technique? Murong Chou said, This is my senior brother Gu. He has the Worship Heaven sword. This is my senior brother Jiang. He has the Heaven Slaughtering sword. Do you want to exchange pointers? Chu Li's eyes lit up. Sure. The two youths looked ordinary, but the aura around them was monstrous. They stood there like two towering mountains. Those who were less courageous were scared stiff and couldn't move their hands and feet. Chu Li could tell that the two of them were deliberately releasing their auras to take him down a notch. He smiled and gave a fist salute. I'm Wu Yuanxi from the Flying Heaven sect. Greetings, senior brother Gu and senior brother Jiang. You're welcome. Gu Qianqi waved his hand and said calmly, Your junior brother Morong's good friend, so you're not an outsider. Let's exchange pointers. I also want to see the martial arts of the Flying Heaven sect. Junior brother Morong was proud, arrogant, and condescending, but he had a friend who was highly regarded by him. He ran up and down to ask Gu Tianqi and junior brother Jiang to exchange pointers with his friend because this friend wanted to see the Sword Demon sect swordsmanship. It was rare for junior brother Morong to have a friend that he liked, so they naturally couldn't drag him down and cause trouble. Moreover, they had heard of Wu Yuanxi's reputation as the Flying Heaven sect's top youth master. Such a person was worthy for them to fight. Jiang Zhenghua said, Wu Yuanxi, you're famous. We're curious too. I'll go first. As he spoke, he slowly drew his sword. The blade was snow-white and flawless. He said calmly, Heaven Slaughtering sword. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect to see the Heaven Slaughtering sword right away. He gave a fist salute and said, Divine Demon Claw. The Flying Divine Demon technique contained the Flying Divine Demon Claw, which was extremely fast. When combined with the Flying Divine Demon technique, its power was even more shocking. Your claw technique can't withstand my swordsmanship. Jiang Zhenghua shook his head and laughed. My sword is very sharp. Come, Chu Li said in a low voice. His left hand was still a palm, but his right hand was already arched into the shape of an eagle's claw. Swoosh! As the sword whistled, Jiang Zhenghua's sword stabbed at Chu Li. His movement was slow and calm. It was not tainted with murderous intent or smoke. It was as if he was casually waving his sword. Chu Li's feet fluttered as he dodged the sword's force. He was quite familiar with this swordsmanship, so he broke it without hesitation. He wanted to see the difference between Jiang Zhenghua's heaven-slaughtering sword and the one he cultivated. The first move didn't seem any different. Good. Jiang Zhenghua smiled. It was the first time someone could directly dodge the sword. It seemed easy and slow, but under the heaven-slaughtering technique, the sword's force seemed light. The sword's force could shake one's will and spirit. No matter how slow one was, one could not dodge it. Wu Yuanxi dodged it so easily. He did have some skills. Swoosh! The second move was waved. Chu Li stretched out his hand like a claw and gently pecked, accurately hitting the back of his sword. Jiang Zhenghua did not even have time to change his move and was easily hit. It was as if Chu Li had seen through his sword's force. It was a perfect move. He really could not believe that the heaven-slaughtering sword was broken. Ding, 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 ding. The next dozen moves were almost the same as the first one. Chu Li easily broke his sword forms. Chu Li's claws were either pecking or moving his fingers. His nails were extremely hard and forcefully blocked all his sword forms. These sword forms were all from the heaven-slaughtering sword. He was very familiar with it. It was no different from the heaven-slaughtering sword that he cultivated. He was a little confused. Could it be that the swordsmanship he obtained was complete? Why did it feel incomplete? Good. Jiang Zhenghua nodded slowly. Looks like I have to show some of my true skills. Be careful. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Jiang Zhenghua finally understood that Wu Yuanxi lived up to his name. He needed to give it his all. His sword form suddenly changed and became softer. The treasure sword seemed to be weightless. There was no aura when he swung it, but it was extremely fast. With a light swing, it arrived in an instant as if it had broken through the restraints of space. Chu Li was shocked. Could this be the real heaven-slaughtering sword? Ding! Chu Li waved his claw to deflect the tip of the sword. His whole body instantly went numb. The inner energy of the heaven-slaughtering technique became like a high-speed, rotating drill. It easily tore through the obstruction of the flying demon technique and went straight for his heart. He quickly used the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique to absorb it. He cried out in surprise, "Good swordsmanship! Senior Jiang, this is also the heaven-slaughtering sword? This is the real heaven-slaughtering sword." Jiang Zhenghua said. "That was just a warm-up. Be careful," he said seriously. His movements became softer. The sword flashed, and the tip of the sword had already pierced through the void and arrived in front of Chu Li's throat. It was too fast to dodge. Ding! Chu Li once again reached out to deflect the tip of the sword. Jiang Zhenghua was even more surprised. He did not expect Chu Li to react so quickly. What a good flying demon technique. Chu Li secretly sighed. If it was not for the flying demon technique, he really could not block this heaven-slaughtering sword. Just as he expected, the heaven-slaughtering sword was indeed mysterious. He had not learned it completely. Chapter 2095. Ding, 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 ding. Chu Li's claws were as fast as lightning as he continuously parried one sword after another. However, his mind was imprinting every move clearly. He was not in a hurry to derive the star insight technique. It was also thanks to the star insight technique that he was able to parry one sword after another. Otherwise, he would not be able to block it with just the flying divine demon technique. The sky regicide sword became faster and more unpredictable. It was impossible to defend against it. Ding! Muron Cho suddenly drew his sword and blocked Jiang Zhenghua's sword. "Brother Muron, what are you doing?" Jiang Zhenghua stared at him in dissatisfaction. "I'm having a good time. If you continue, Brother Jiang, you'll have to use your secret skill." Muron Cho said, "We're not mortal enemies. Don't use it. You're siding with an outsider," Jiang Zhenghua said snappily. "Seeing that your friend is about to lose, you're trying to stop him. You're really bad. Move. I haven't had enough yet." "Brother Jiang, don't overdo it." Muron Cho waved his hand. Chu Li smiled. "Brother Jiang, I'm really not his opponent." Jiang Zhenghua scoffed. "Yuan-Si, you're very talented in swordsmanship. You shouldn't be training in fists and claws. You should be training in swordsmanship. Chu Li was extremely sensitive to sword techniques, and his insight into swordsmanship was extraordinary. It was a very keen intuition. If not, he would not be able to restrain the sky regicide sword with just his techniques. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Flying Heaven faction swordsmanship is nothing to my eyes. That's true. Jiang Zhenghua shook his head and sighed. What a pity. With your talent, if you were to learn swordsmanship, you wouldn't be inferior to me. Brother Jiang, he's not inferior to you now, Morong Cho said. Jiang Zhenghua glared at him. Get lost. I don't want to talk to you. Morong Cho smiled. You have your ultimate move. Elder Wu has his too. Chu Li said. Then it's hard to say that I can beat Brother Jiang. Come on, hypocrite. Morong Cho glanced at him. Do you think I don't know what you're capable of? Chu Li chuckled and did not say anything else. Jiang Zhenghua shook his head and took a step back. With your talent, you really should practice the sword. Chu Li Fist saluted and smiled without saying anything. Let me do it. Gu Qianqi smiled as he stepped forward and said, You're really itching for a move. Mine is the celestial sword. You can block the heaven regaining sword, but you might not be able to block the celestial sword. Please. Chu Li closed fist saluted solemnly. Through the previous exchange, he had memorized more than 30 moves of the Sky Regicide Sword. It would be best if he could see the complete Sky Regicide Sword. Unfortunately, this was almost impossible. The Sky Regicide Sword was a secret sword technique of the Sword Demon sect. It would never be leaked to outsiders. Gu Qianqi drew his sword out of its sheath. Instantly, the sword light shone brightly like a scorching sun falling down, so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. Chu Li squinted his eyes. Under the observation of the omniscient mirror, he waved his hands as if he was playing a zither. Bang, 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 bang. Muffled sounds rang out incessantly. It didn't sound like fingers colliding with the tip of a sword. Instead, it sounded like fists striking leather. It was shocking and earth-shattering. Morong Cho and Jiang Zhenghua widened their eyes as they watched Chu Li retreat step by step under Gu Tianqi's sword. Yet he was able to accurately deflect the tip of the sword. Gu Tianqi's sword technique was like a collapsing mountain. It pressed down from the sky and the earth. It was also like a landslide, unstoppable. Take this, Gu Tianqi shouted. He drew his sword out of its sheath and shot it towards Chu Li's back. A cold light flashed. Chu Li extended his hand to grab behind him. The long sword was in his hand. Suddenly, a cold light flashed. The long sword was light and elegant. It accurately pierced the tip of Gu Tianqi's sword. Both of them trembled. Ding, 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 ding. Their long swords clashed continuously. Jiang Zhenghua looked at Morong Cho in shock. Morong Cho also widened his eyes. The sword technique that Chu Li performed was exactly the one that Jiang Zhenghua performed earlier. It was light and elegant, but the sword force was strangely fast. It already had some essence. Jiang Zhenghua and Morong Cho's expressions changed slightly. Junior Brother Morong, this friend of yours is amazing. Jiang Zhenghua shook his head and sighed. His expression was complicated as he stared at Chu Li's sword technique. Although there were some flaws and choppiness with the essence, the power had increased by 70 to 80%. Coupled with the body movement technique of the flying divine demon technique, he was actually evenly matched with the Sky Regicide sword. Good. Morong Cho suddenly shouted. Gu Tianqi suddenly retreated and sheathed his long sword. He shook his head and sighed. Forget it. Let's stop here. Chu Li revealed a look of longing. Senior Brother Gu, the winner has not been decided yet. If you continue, you'll learn my Sky Regicide sword too. Gu Tianqi shook his head and said, Forget it. Let's stop here. You're indeed a genius in sword technique cultivation. Chu Li revealed a bitter smile and shook his head. Only the form. It's hard to learn the heart technique. The sword technique of the Flying Heaven sect is really not good enough. Forget it. The power of the flying divine demon claw is enough. Claw techniques are different from sword techniques after all. Jiang Zhenghua sighed. With your aptitude, if you were a disciple of the sword demon sect, your achievements would probably be above Junior Brother Morong. What a pity. Chu Li smiled. The sword technique that I've learned now is enough to fool ordinary masters. You've seen sky regicide sword technique before? Jiang Zhenhua asked. Chu Li shook his head. First time. Then do you have a photographic memory? Jiang Zhenhua asked. Chu Li nodded. You're blessed by nature, just like senior brother Feng. Jiang Zhenhua sighed. But you're able to understand the essence of the sword technique in such a short period of time. Your comprehension is extraordinary. It's a kind of talent in sword techniques. Chu Li smiled. I've also cultivated the flying divine demon technique very quickly. I've only cultivated it for a few days, but no matter how fast you learn martial arts, you still need to accumulate your skills over time. You might have an advantage in the beginning, but it's useless later on. That's true. Jiang Zhenhua nodded. Gu Qianqi said, what is it? This is an incredible talent. There are many martial arts that we can't cultivate, but he can. Just like senior brother Feng's Wonderheart sword. It's useless even if we cultivate it for 100 years. Jiang Zhenhua smiled and nodded. Murong Cho said, Elder Wu, how much of Sky Regicide sword have you learned? I can remember everything I've seen just now. Chu Li smiled. And the Sky Regicide sword. You've learned the Sky Regicide sword too? Murong Cho said, you know more sword techniques than me. Chu Li said, yes, but your Sky Regicide sword doesn't have any techniques. It's useless to learn. Murong Cho laughed proudly. Then practice a few techniques of the Sky Regicide sword, Jiang Zhenhua said. He still did not quite believe it. He suspected that Chu Li had seen the Sky Regicide sword before. Chu Li swung his sword. Instantly the sword's light was dazzling. Then the sword's force was torrential, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was unstoppable. Great sword technique. Gu Qianqi clapped his hands and praised. Chu Li did not only display the sword techniques, he also mastered the essence. It was truly amazing. If he did not see it with his own eyes, it would be hard to believe. Even senior brother Feng could not achieve this level. This was indeed an enviable talent. If he had this talent, he could see all the sword techniques in the world, then create his own. He would be able to stand above all heroes. No one in the world could resist him. Chu Li returned the sword to Jiang Zhenhua. Jiang Zhenhua looked at Chu Li with a complicated gaze. He had the same thoughts as Gu Qianqi. Murong Cho smiled. Senior brother Jiang, senior brother Gu, he's the future leader of the Flying Heaven faction. It's impossible for him to join our faction. Sigh. Gu Qianqi and Jiang Zhenhua shook their heads and sighed. It's better to learn some sword techniques, Jiang Zhenhua said. Jiang Zhenhua said, our faction also has some sword technique secret manuals. It's mysterious and unpredictable. It's a pity that it's hard to learn. Maybe some of them are incomplete. You can try it. Chu Li said, that's not a good idea, is it? Let junior brother Murong show it to you. Jiang Zhenhua said, with your qualifications, it's such a waste if you don't learn sword techniques. Chapter 2096. If he had such aptitude, he could not only learn Sky Murder Sword, but also Sky Punishing Sword. Unfortunately, such aptitude could only be encountered and not sought. Chu Li sighed. This Sky Murder Sword is a little strange. Although the previous sword technique is exquisite, why is the power difference between the later sword technique and the previous one so huge? Jiang Zhenhua shook his head. This is the secret of Sky Murder Sword. It can't be leaked. Senior Jiang, why can't it be leaked? The Sky Murder Scripture can't be leaked anyway, so the sword technique doesn't matter. Murong Cho said disapprovingly, and it's not a great secret. The previous sword technique is used to perform secret techniques. It has to be performed together with secret techniques, or else the power won't be enough. Then, what about the later sword technique combined with secret techniques? Chu Li's heart skipped a beat, but his face showed doubt. Won't it be more powerful? Murong Cho said, the later sword technique doesn't need secret techniques. Junior brother Murong. Jiang Zhenhua stared at him sternly. All right, then I won't talk about it. Murong Cho curled his lips. Let's go, I'll choose an exquisite sword technique. If you can really master it, then we'll have more power against the Mystic Heart sect. Chu Li said, no matter how good the sword technique is, it can't compare to my soaring divine demon technique. Heh, then you overestimate your flying heaven sect. Murong Cho said disapprovingly. I'll go find a sword technique that's more powerful than your soaring divine demon technique, as long as you can master it. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. I haven't met a martial art that I can't master. All right, then let's go, Murong Cho said. Chu Li fist saluted and bid farewell to Gu Tianqi and Jiang Zhenghua. Looking at Chu Li's disappearing figure, Jiang Zhenghua sighed and shook his head. Junior brother Jiang, this is nothing. Gu Tianqi smiled. Aptitude is important, but the key is still hard work. Also, seeing that he's with junior brother Murong, he's not a peaceful person. Who knows how long he'll live? Jiang Zhenghua smiled. Senior brother Gu, you're too ruthless. I'm not cursing you. Think about how many talented people there were in the heavenly demonic realm. How many of them could become great people? Even the heavens are jealous of geniuses. Gu Tianqi shook his head with a smile and said, even with senior brother Feng's aptitude, he didn't conceal his strength and bide his time after successfully cultivating the abstruse heart sword. All right, I'm just lamenting that I don't have such good luck. Jiang Zhenghua said, our fate is not good. Is it bad luck to be able to enter the sword demon sect? Gu Tianqi said, you're too greedy. Jiang Zhenghua smiled and nodded. Chu Li and Murong Cho arrived at his courtyard. Murong Cho asked Chu Li to wait for a while and quickly left. Chu Li sat in Murong Cho's courtyard. Looking at the elegant courtyard and the winding garden, he realized that Murong Cho was really elegant on the inside. He looked reckless and overbearing on the outside, but in fact, he had a beautiful heart. He was someone who paid attention to enjoyment. When he thought of the heaven-killing sword, his heart was as calm as water. He knew that there was no need to pursue it anymore, and on the contrary, he gave up. The front part was used to perform the secret technique, so it was exquisite but not too powerful. This secret technique was obviously the heaven-killing incantation, and the real heaven-killing sword technique was at the back. However, to Chu Li, what he needed the most was the front part, and not the sword technique at the back. Although the power of the sword technique at the back was strong, it was far from the combination of the heaven-killing sword and the heaven-killing incantation. Knowing this, he was a little disappointed, but also satisfied. He did not need to pursue it bitterly and stop thinking about it. As for the sword technique that Murong Cho mentioned, he did not care much about it. How could a sword technique that was placed on the shelf be good? Even if it was exquisite, it had already been absorbed, and what was left was just leftovers. After a while, Murong Cho returned and took out a thin book and threw it on the stone table. Take a look. Chu Li took it and glanced at it. He smiled and said, Coalescence sword. How is it? Murong Cho asked. Chu Li quickly flipped through it. There was only one sword technique. The style was very simple, but the heart technique was complicated. Moreover, it needed to be accumulated. The heart technique needed to be channeled for a while in advance to be able to condense all the power and momentum in the body into one sword, and then explode with an earth-shattering sword. The so-called coalescence sword was the unification of all sword techniques. All the sword techniques in the world were in one sword. One sword encompassed all the sword techniques. What a big talk. Chu Li raised his head and looked at Murong Cho. Big talk. I'm afraid the power is ordinary. Everyone has practiced it before, but there are strong and weak powers, but none of them are as exaggerated as what he wrote. Coalescence sword? What a joke. Murong Cho said. But I don't think anyone has practiced it correctly. You can give it a try. Chu Li said, Senior Brother Feng, have you practiced it before? Of course, Senior Brother Feng has practiced it before. Unfortunately, the power produced is also very ordinary. Murong Cho shook his head. What an inexplicable sword. Chu Li threw the secret book back to him and nodded. I will practice it. Once I master it, I will demonstrate it for you. That's for the best. Murong Cho said. Let's see what you're really capable of, and whether your talent in swordsmanship is really that great. Shall we take a stroll outside again? That's what I was thinking. Chu Li smiled. The two hit it off and immediately left the sword demon sect, heading towards a profound heart sect. Along the way, the two did not meet the elders of the profound heart sect, nor did they meet the disciples of the profound heart sect. It was as if the profound heart sect was deliberately avoiding the two of them. This made Murong Cho very unhappy. He felt that the profound heart sect was up to something again. The two of them did not use their light body technique. They just walked slowly. Chu Li knew that even if the elders of the profound heart sect did not appear, they would definitely notice this side. By keeping an eye on this side, he could divert their attention so that they would not notice the strangeness of the Flying Heaven sect. Chu Li took the opportunity to understand the customs and practices of the heavenly demonic realm. It was also a rare opportunity to comprehend the coalescence sword along the way. The Heavenly Star Insight had been deducing this move. The profoundness of this move was not only in the heart technique, but also the perfect combination of the heart technique and posture. Everyone's body was different, so the same move would have different powers. This move needed to be adjusted according to one's own body. Without a profound cultivation in swordsmanship, it was difficult to comprehend the combination of the sword and the person, the relationship between the sword and the person, and how to best coordinate and unleash the strongest power. Therefore, it was not too exaggerated to call it the coalescence sword. This move was a move that reduced the brilliance of the swordsmanship to a plain one. Through deducing and comprehending this move, Chu Li's understanding of swordsmanship deepened. His original swordsmanship also unknowingly improved. As the sun set, the two of them arrived at a small town. They entered the best restaurant in the town and found a seat by the window. Murong Cho ordered 2 jars of the best wine. After drinking a few cups in one go, he let out a long sigh and slammed the table. So boring. Chu Li was multitasking. His Heavenly Star Insight had been deducing the coalescence sword. He looked normal on the outside. He smiled. It's really boring. It seems like the profound heart sect is ignoring me. That's strange, Murong Cho said. You're swaggering around and they actually let you go? Chu Li said, maybe they're accumulating their strength for a strike to kill. We still have to be careful. It's not a good idea to always be so cautious. We have to take the initiative. Murong Cho scoffed and filled their cups again. Suddenly, they heard a few discussions. I didn't expect the Heavenly Wind sect and the Profound Heart sect to fight. It seems like the Profound Heart sect started it. Why would the Profound Heart sect do this? Chapter 2097. Murong Cho's eyes widened, and he turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li shook his head. I don't know. No wonder they had to deal with us. Did they go against the Sky Wind sect? Murong Cho laughed. How impressive. They provoked the Sky Wind sect, and now they provoked the Sky Wind sect. What are they trying to do? Chu Li had already guessed it. He was impressed by the sect leader's methods. Maybe they think that the Profound Heart sect is strong enough, so they're starting to pay attention to their prestige, Chu Li said. Or maybe it's a misunderstanding that will be cleared up soon. Once the Profound Heart sect makes a move, they always think carefully. Murong Cho said, I know these people the best. They only care about benefits and not emotions. They will never act impulsively. Chu Li said, then maybe there's something we don't know. This is interesting. Shall we join in? Murong Cho said. Let's see how big the fight between the Sky Wind sect and the Profound Heart sect is. Chu Li said, it's already too late, right? He thought of many things in an instant. He speculated that Zhao Lingfeng had passed the news of Huang Heming's death to the soul-separating palm to the Profound Heart sect. He then vaguely mentioned the Sky Wind sect. With the Profound Heart sect's intelligence, they would know if they were framed or not. If the Sky Wind sect really framed them, the Profound Heart sect would definitely not suffer. If they did not want the two sects to fight, they would have to deal with the Sky Wind sect. The Sky Wind sect and the Sky Wind sect had a deep grudge. They would definitely not let go of this opportunity. Thus, the two sects joined forces to deal with the Sky Wind sect. Even if Huang Heming was really done by the Profound Heart sect, the Sky Wind sect would pretend not to know and take the opportunity to deal with the Sky Wind sect. Such methods were worthy of the sect leader. Chu Li was secretly impressed. These two brothers. Morong Cho stood up and strode to a table. He closed fists, saluted the two young men, and laughed. I am Morong Cho from the Sword Demon sect. Master Morong. The two quickly stood up and closed fist saluted. Morong Cho's name was like thunder piercing their ears. They did not dare to slight him and hurriedly said with a smile, It's an honor to meet you. Come, come. I always like making friends. How about we sit and talk? Morong Cho said politely. This made the two of them feel extremely flattered. Morong Cho's temper was as famous as his swordsmanship. He was famous for being rude, overbearing, and unscrupulous. The two of them believed that if they refused, Morong Cho would definitely become hostile and even beat them up. In that case, we'll do as you say, the two of them replied with a smile. Morong Cho brought the two of them to sit in front of Chu Li and pointed at him. This is Wu UNC from the Flying Heaven sect. Chu Li gave a fist salute and smiled. I haven't asked for your names yet. Li Jinxiu, Wu Zongqing. The two of them cupped their fists and reported their names. Chu Li smiled and said, Young Hero Li, Young Hero Wu, we heard earlier that the disciples of the Profound Heart sect and the Sky Wind sect had a conflict. Exactly. The two of them became spirited as they knew why they were called over. They immediately relaxed and smiled. Two disciples from the Profound Heart sect killed a disciple from the Heavenly Wind sect. He's dead? Chu Li was surprised. There was no way to turn the situation around. The Profound Heart sect was ruthless and left no way out. They were very determined. The two of them nodded slowly. We saw it with our own eyes. It was outside the forest outside the town. After the two disciples from the Profound Heart sect killed the disciple, they did not hide it at all. We were not the only ones who saw it. There were many others. Chu Li asked, what did they say? The disciples from the Profound Heart sect seemed to say something about the disciple from the Sky Wind sect being despicable and putting the blame on others. Chu Li nodded slowly. It seemed that the Profound Heart sect was making their stance clear to the Flying Heaven sect. It was also a sign of allegiance. They wanted to stand on the side of the Flying Heaven sect against the Sky Wind sect. The relationship between sects was like this. Benefits were the foundation and emotions were put aside. Sigh. That's it. Morong Cho shook his head. It's too fast. Who died? Chen Qiming from the Sky Wind sect. Chen Qiming. Morong Cho frowned. He's a master. Now that Chen Qiming is dead, the Sky Wind sect will be furious. They will definitely seek revenge on the Profound Heart sect. Elder Wu, your Flying Heaven sect can watch the show. Everyone knew about the grudge between the Flying Heaven sect and the Sky Wind sect. If the Sky Wind sect was unlucky, the Flying Heaven sect would only clap their hands in joy. Can the Flying Heaven sect and the Sky Wind sect join forces to deal with the Profound Heart sect? Morong Cho asked. That's not a bad idea. Let's destroy the Profound Heart sect and then decide who's better. Chu Li laughed. How can it be that easy to destroy a sect? Forget about the Flying Heaven sect and the Sky Wind sect. Even if the Sword Demon sect were to join forces, they still wouldn't be able to destroy the Profound Heart sect. What about the Dancing Butterfly sect? Morong Cho asked. You have a good relationship with the Dancing Butterfly sect, right? Chu Li shook his head. It's just a nodding acquaintance. The Sky Wind sect will never let this go. They will definitely seek revenge. We still have a good show to watch. It's a pity that we won't be able to see the disciples of the Profound Heart sect. Li Jinxiu and Wu Zongqing sat for a while. When they saw that Morong Cho and Chu Li were done talking, they quickly stood up and left. After they left, Morong Cho felt that it was boring. So, he immediately said goodbye to Chu Li. Chu Li also returned to the Flying Heaven sect. He had gained a lot from this trip. He already had some understanding of the coalescent sword. He would be able to master it in a few more days. With this sword technique, he would be able to unleash great power during normal times without having to suppress his own cultivation level. Moreover, this sword technique would be able to be used even when he returned to the Grandmaster's boundary. As soon as he returned to the sect, he felt deserted. The huge Flying Heaven sect seemed to have very few people. It was cold and deserted. The martial arts field that was originally bustling with noise could not be seen. The buildings were also almost empty. He immediately returned to his courtyard. As soon as he sat down, he used the omniscient mirror to observe his surroundings to see who was still in the sect. Hu Tianlai pushed the door open and entered. Masters Jr. Chu Li stood up and fist saluted. Hu Tianlai waved his hand and sat opposite him. He sighed. Yuan Si, get ready. The war is about to begin. Chu Li hurriedly asked, with whom? The Sky Wind sect. Hu Tianlai said. It could also be the Profound Heart sect. Both sects are enemies. Chu Li asked, sect leader, have you found out? Yes. Hu Tianlai sighed. There's someone from the Sky Wind sect who cultivates the soul separation palm. His name is Chun Chiming. He was the one who did it. Chu Li frowned. Was it really him? Most likely. Hu Tianlai sighed. I didn't expect the Sky Wind sect to be so powerful. Chu Li slowly nodded. If Chun Chiming did not die, he could still personally investigate. However, Chun Chiming was killed by the Profound Heart sect. It was too much of a coincidence. Could it be that they wanted to silence him so that there would be no evidence? In fact, it was the Profound Heart sect who did it. Instead, they shifted the blame to the Sky Wind sect. Did they predict that the Flying Heaven sect would take the opportunity to deal with the Sky Wind sect? Also, if it was really Chun Chiming who did it, why did the Sky Wind sect let Chun Chiming leave the sect? If the Sky Wind sect let Chun Chiming leave the sect on purpose, then he had to be careful. It was very likely that the Sky Wind sect and the Profound Heart sect had joined forces. The heavenly demonic power could change one's appearance. It was not difficult to find someone to impersonate Chun Chiming. Even if one's appearance would be restored after death, he could find someone who looked similar to Chun Chiming. Chu Li's mind spun rapidly as he thought of various possibilities. It was as if a dense fog was blocking his vision. Chapter 2098. Yuan Si, don't leave the sect for a while, Hu Tianlai said. Don't participate in the upcoming battle either. Chu Li frowned. Am I supposed to watch from the sidelines? You're still young. Us old guys will be enough. Hu Tianlai said. Let's try to get rid of the Tianfeng sect in one fell swoop. I still have to be careful of the Profound Heart sect. Chu Li said. Whether they will ally with us or with the Tianfeng sect, who can tell? This is a big problem. Hu Tianlai nodded slowly. We have to be on guard. The Profound Heart sect could do such a thing. On the surface, it looked like they were allying with the Flying Heaven sect, but they were even secretly allying with the Heavenly Wind sect. In any case, it was impossible for the Flying Heaven sect and the Heavenly Wind sect to ally together, so the Profound Heart sect was more than capable. No matter how smart Chu Li was, he still felt like he was in a fog. He could not see his surroundings or what was in front of him. However, he decided to make use of this opportunity to make a great contribution and strive to enter the upper echelons of the Flying Heaven sect as soon as possible so that he could influence the decisions of the Flying Heaven sect and the entire Sky Demon realm. Chu Li said, Masters Jr., I can't just sit and watch. All young disciples are to return to the Hermit Peaks and are not allowed to participate in this matter. Hu Tianlai said, This is the decision of the sect leader and the elders. Yuan Si, although your martial arts are strong, it's not the right time yet. There will be battles like this in the future. Chu Li shook his head. It's better to stay in the Hermit Peaks. As long as I change my appearance, no one will be able to recognize me. It's more convenient to stay in the Hermit Peaks, and I won't be able to attack in time. But this is the sect master's order, Hu Tianlai said. Chu Li smiled and said, Then, Masters Jr., please help me keep it a secret. You. Hu Tianlai shook his head and smiled. It was true that the other disciples had to return to the Hermit Peaks and couldn't participate in this kind of thing. But Wu Yuanci was different from the other young disciples. His cultivation was strong enough, and he wasn't inferior to the elders. He only lost in experience. Chu Li said, After I get out of here, I'll hide my whereabouts and not let anyone discover me. I can join in at the crucial moment. It might be useful. That's true. Hu Tianlai gently nodded and said, I'll talk to the sovereign. If the sovereign really objects, you'll have to obediently go to the Hermit Peaks. The Hermit Peaks are truly safe there. Chu Li responded with a fist salute. Hu Tianlai left and went to the main palace to see Zhao Lingfeng. Zhao Lingfeng was deep in thought in the hall. When Hu Tianlai came in, he waved his hand and gestured for him to sit down and talk. Hu Tianlai told Zhao Lingfeng what he had told Chu Li. Zhao Lingfeng nodded lightly. The profound heart sect. Indeed, we must guard against them. Ever since Yuan Si went to the Grandmaster's realm, he's really different. It's as if he's been enlightened. Hu Tianlai laughed. Not only has his martial arts improved, but his intelligence has also improved. Zhao Lingfeng nodded lightly. He has been sharpened, and the light is getting brighter and brighter. We need to be careful not to get harmed. With the void-breaching bead and his quick-wittedness, it won't be easy to harm him, Hu Tianlai said with a smile. Zhao Lingfeng said, "All right, we'll do as he says." Hu Tianlai cupped his fists and left. Chu Li sat on the crown of an ancient tree, his body covered by the surrounding leaves. Coupled with the life and death scripture's ability to conceal his presence, no one would be able to detect his presence. It was as if he had become one with the tree. He used the omniscient mirror to observe the towering mountain in front of him. The towering mountain pierced through the sky and pierced through the clouds. The mountainside was covered by the white clouds, and the peak could not be seen. He stood in the forest at the foot of the mountain and could only see the lush, ancient trees on the mountain. The majestic atmosphere made him feel as small as an ant. There was nothing special about this mountain. The sects he had seen were all like this. He hid in the crown of this ancient tree for 2 days and did not move at all. It was as if he had become a part of the tree, a branch. The sect where this mountain was located was the Tianfeng sect. The sun was setting, and it was almost dusk. Chu Li still did not move. The next day was about to pass. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and saw a young man walking out of the mountain. The young man was dressed in a dark blue robe, and his long sleeves fluttered in the wind. He looked like a scholar, not a martial arts master. His cultivation level was not too high, but he could not see through the young man's mind. It was obvious that the young man did not have a higher cultivation level, but he had a treasure on him. He was the prey that Chu Li had been waiting for. The young man in the blue robe glided over to the forest where Chu Li was. Chu Li suddenly appeared behind him in a flash and reached out to seal all the acupuncture points on his body. Then he silently caught him and disappeared from the spot. The next moment, he appeared in a cave 100 miles away. First, he took off a purple bead that the young man was wearing around his neck. It was round and flawless, as big as a longan fruit, emitting a faint luster. He placed it on his palm and felt an invisible force spreading out, blocking his senses. This was the bead that could block others from prying. It was indeed extraordinary. He wore it on his neck and then opened the young man's acupuncture point. At this moment, he had already turned into the appearance of an elder of the profound heart sect. "Who are you?" The young man turned around and glared at him. His body was light and agile, and he placed his palms in front of his chest. He stared at Chu Li with caution. "What do you want?" Chu Li said, "Tell me your name." Deng Sun from the Tianfeng sect." The young man said coldly, "Since you dare to make a move in front of our sect, you must not be a nobody. Do you dare to tell me your name?" Chu Li shook his head. "I'm afraid of the Sky Wind sect, so I won't tell you my name. I want to hear something." "What is it?" scoffed the young man, Deng Sun. Chu Li said, "Is Chun Chiming from your sect here?" "Brother Chun?" Deng Sun frowned. "Why are you looking for Brother Chun?" "I heard that he's dead." Chu Li said, "I found it strange that he was killed by the profound heart sect." "Who said that Brother Chun is dead?" Deng Sun shook his head. "How can the profound heart sect kill Brother Chun?" "He's not dead," Chu Li asked. Deng Sun shook his head. "Brother Chun is alive and well." Chu Li laughed. "Are you trying to fool me?" As he spoke, he slapped Deng Sun fiercely. His movement was fast, and his palm technique was gentle. Deng Sun scoffed and dodged. His body movement technique was even faster. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. Deng Sun was indeed a disciple of the Sky Wind sect. Although his cultivation level was not high, his body movement technique was extremely fast. Chu Li urged his palm technique to force Deng Sun to use his body movement technique while observing Deng Sun's channeling route. From Deng Sun's mind, he saw that Chun Qiming was not dead. He even saw him before he left the mountain. When he saw this, he felt that something was wrong. It was possible that it was as he expected. The Sky Wind sect and the Profound Heart sect had secretly joined hands. Of course, it was also possible that his guess was too serious. There must be an inside story. The Profound Heart sect could not be trusted, but the Sky Wind sect should not be underestimated. Chu Li scoffed. Your body movement technique is too weak. How can you be considered a disciple of the Sky Wind sect? Oomph. Deng Sun gritted his teeth. His face suddenly turned pale. He then turned into a wisp of smoke and swept past Chu Li. He wanted to escape from the cave. Chu Li shook his head. In a flash, he appeared at the entrance of the cave. He blocked Deng Sun's way and forced him to use his martial arts. Not only did the Sky Wind sect have light body technique, but their palm and fist techniques were also unique. Their moves were extremely fast and hard to defend against. Deng Sun punched and fought with Chu Li for a while. Chu Li kept asking him about his friends, where he usually trained, who were his seniors, who were close to his brothers, and what he liked to eat. Chapter 2099. Deng Sun did not recognize the Flying Heaven sect, but he knew something was wrong when he saw the towering mountain. It must be a big sect. Could it really be the Profound Heart sect? Just as he was trying to figure out where he was, his vision went black and he lost consciousness. Chu Li brought him into his courtyard. As soon as he sat down, Hu Tianlai appeared and looked at Deng Sun. Who is this? A disciple of the Tianfeng sect, Chu Li said. A good friend of mine. Hu Tianlai frowned. A good friend of the Tianfeng sect? Chu Li smiled and nodded slowly. What's the matter with you? Hu Tianlai asked in a deep voice. Chu Li said, Masters Junior, did you find out if Chun Qiming is dead or not? According to the information I received, Chun Qiming is not dead, but it's hard to tell. Even if you see it with your own eyes, it might not be true, so I'm still trying to figure it out. There's no rush, Hu Tianlai said slowly. He was swift and decisive. He already knew from the Tianfeng sect disciples that Chun Qiming was not dead, but he was skeptical. This information was too easy to obtain, so he did not dare to say if Chun Qiming was dead or not. In the heavenly demonic realm, one could not only recognize faces or they would be deceived. Most people had the ability to change their appearance. If the Tianfeng sect found someone to impersonate Chun Qiming, few Tianfeng sect disciples would be able to realize it. To deceive others, one must first deceive oneself. Chu Li nodded. I need to go out for a while. Masters Junior, please find someone to take care of my friend. Don't let him open his eyes and see us here. Just provide him with food and water. He did not have the intention to kill Deng Sun, and he could not kill him. Since he was impersonating Deng Sun, he might have something to ask Deng Sun. He did not want to expose himself, so he had to keep Deng Sun alive. No problem. Hu Tianlai nodded. He could vaguely guess Chu Li's plan, but did not stop him. Although it was dangerous, it was the best way. He wanted to confirm the authenticity of Chun Qiming and whether he was really dead or not. He sighed to himself. This Wei UNC was really brave. It all depended on his luck and ability. If he could really figure it out, it would be a great achievement, and it would affect the survival of the sect. Chu Li Fist saluted and left. He changed into Deng Sun's appearance and returned to the Tianfeng sect. The layout of the Heavenly Wind sect was completely different from that of the Flying Heaven sect. All the palaces and buildings were on the top of the mountain, and there were no buildings on the mountainside or anywhere else. There were only lush forests and small training grounds. He retracted his flying god and demon power and circulated his cloud-slashing power according to the heart technique he had obtained from Deng Sun. His cultivation base was on par with Chu Li's as he slowly walked toward Deng Sun's courtyard. Along the way, he met two young men who were walking hurriedly with cold expressions. Chu Li quickly searched his mind for the faces of the two men and quickly bowed. Senior Brother Qi, Senior Brother Liu. The two of them waved their hands and ignored him, hurrying down the mountain. Chu Li let out a sigh of relief and slowly returned to his courtyard. He sat down and immediately used the omniscient mirror to observe the entire Tianfeng sect. A few of the palaces could not be broken through, but the rest of the place could be seen clearly. Moreover, most of the disciples could see clearly in their minds. In the Tianfeng sect, their guard was extremely low. Even if they had treasures to protect themselves, they did not need to use them. Chu Li sighed. His cultivation level was still not strong enough. Otherwise, he would be able to see through everyone's minds. Now he could see through 70 to 80% of them, but he could not see through the minds of the important people. The more he needed to see through, the more he could not see through them. This was because his cultivation level was not high enough. If his cultivation level was higher than theirs, everything would be exposed, and there would be no need for him to work so hard. Therefore, it was still better to cultivate. He quickly put these thoughts aside and went to find Chen Qiming. Chen Qiming was 200 meters away from his courtyard, which was considered close. His own courtyard was very remote, far away from the central path. Even though they were from the Tianfeng sect and had extremely fast body movement techniques, it was still inconvenient. The location of the courtyard showed the status of the disciples in the sect. The disciples' courtyards were built in rows along the mountainside, with the central mountain road as the center, spreading out to both sides. The more central the courtyard, the higher it was, the higher the status. The lower the courtyard, the more remote it was, the lower the status. This was also a form of hierarchy to encourage the disciples to work hard and improve their status. Chen Qiming's courtyard was 2 floors higher than his, but it was almost the same distance from the central location. Obviously, his status was not high. Because of his background, he was still ostracized and guarded, and it was difficult for him to enter the higher ranks. Chu Li deduced, shaking his head as he looked at Chen Qiming. Chen Qiming's appearance was ordinary, and he would not stand out in a crowd. He was thin and tall, with a serious expression. It was obvious that he was a strict person. He was already in his 30s and was slowly cultivating. Chu Li frowned and sat down. Chen Qiming's cultivation level was not low, but he could not see through his thoughts because he had a treasure on him. Even in the sect, he always carried a treasure with him, and there was no chance to take advantage of him. Obviously, he was also wary of the sect. Chu Li stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. Since Chen Qiming was still alive, there was no point in getting entangled with him. What he needed to find out was what the secret plan of the Abstruse Heart sect and Tianfeng sect was, and how to deal with the Flying Sky sect. In fact, he did not need to guess to know that it was nothing more than a collaboration. First, Abstruse Heart sect would get close to the Flying Sky sect, and then when the two sects were dealing with the Tianfeng sect, they would suddenly change sides. Even if the Flying Sky sect was prepared, they would not be able to withstand the joint attack of the two sections. Only by luring the snake out of its hole could they seriously damage the Flying Sky sect. Otherwise, it would be almost impossible for the two sects to directly attack the mountain gate of the Flying Sky sect. The sect protection formation was too powerful. If that was the case, then he had to destroy the alliance between the two sections. When he thought of this, he calmed down. The omniscient mirror was still covering the entire Tianfeng sect. It was a rare opportunity to see the actual situation of the Tianfeng sect, and the young disciples were indeed not as good as the Flying Sky sect. If there were no accidents, in 100 years, the Flying Sky sect will be able to suppress the Tianfeng sect, and the two sects would not be on the same level. Chu Li suddenly raised his eyebrows. A burly young man in black clothes came out of the main hall and walked down lightly. The young disciples who came and went looked at him, but no one greeted him. Obviously, they did not know him. Chu Li smiled and walked out of the courtyard. He quickened his pace and walked through the forest, taking a shortcut. When he walked out of the forest and reached the main road, he saw the young man in black clothes approaching him. Chu Li suddenly moved sideways and crashed into the burly young man. It was so sudden and fast that it was impossible to guard against it. The burly young man frowned and floated to dodge, but he did not make it in time. He was hit by Chu Li and almost fell. Chu Li stared coldly at the burly young man. The burly young man stared back at him, and his heart trembled. Could it be that the Tianfeng sect was up to something again? Chu Li snorted and continued to walk forward, ignoring him. The burly young man was furious, but he suppressed it. This was not the place to cause trouble. If it was somewhere else, he would teach Chu Li a lesson. He quickened his pace and hurriedly left the Tianfeng sect. He changed his appearance again and turned into a middle-aged man. His inner energy was slow and faint, and he looked ordinary and unnoticeable. He went into the forest and floated in a place where there was no one around. As he floated, he would suddenly change direction or suddenly speed up or suddenly slow down to check if there was someone following him. Chu Li followed from afar and shook his head. As expected of a disciple of the Mystic Heart sect, he was cautious and suspicious. Chapter 2100. He appeared in front of the burly young man in a flash. He had turned into a skinny middle-aged man and frowned. "What are you doing?" Chu Li chuckled and shook his head. "Which one of you from Profound Heart sect? Tell me your name." "What Profound Heart sect? Are you a disciple of Sky Wind sect?" The burly young man asked. "I am a disciple of Sword Demon sect." "Impossible. Why would someone from Sword Demon sect go to Sky Wind sect?" The burly young man said coldly. Chu Li shook his head. "You don't need to know too much. I want to ask you, is Profound Heart sect allied with Sky Wind sect?" "Don't talk nonsense," the burly young man yelled. Chu Li nodded. "Looks like I was right. As expected of Profound Heart sect. What's real and what's fake? Aren't you afraid of offending someone you shouldn't offend?" "Who's the person I shouldn't offend?" "You?" The burly young man sneered. Chu Li sighed. "I can only send you to heaven today." As he finished, he pulled out a short sword from his sleeve and shook it gently. "Take this." With a soft whistle, the light of the sword was as light as a swallow. It drew an arc and slashed the burly young man's neck. The burly young man could not resist at all. He could only watch as the short sword slid across his neck. He could not avoid it. An invisible force bound him. His senses became sharp, but his movements became slow. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. The short sword in Chu Li's hand suddenly shattered into pieces. The surrounding trees were blown into pieces. The towering old tree was blown into powder by a small piece and fell down. In the blink of an eye, there were less than 5 trees left within 10 meters of the two. Chu Li shook his head helplessly. The heaven-killing scripture really needed the heaven-killing sword. A normal treasure sword could not withstand the power of the heaven-killing scripture. Fortunately, the sword was fast enough. Otherwise, it would have collapsed before it could kill. He turned and glided away. He did not return to Sky Wind sect. Instead, he stood guard at a distance and observed with the omniscient mirror to see if there were any Profound Heart sect disciples coming. On the 3rd day, another disciple from the Mystic Heart sect came to the Tianfeng sect. Before he could reach the Tianfeng sect, he was killed by Chu Li with the Worship Heaven sword. On the 6th day, another Mystic Heart sect elder came to the Tianfeng sect, but he was still killed by Chu Li with the Sky-killing sword, unable to reach the Tianfeng sect. On the evening of the 7th day, Chu Li saw the 6 elders from Profound Heart sect approaching. He frowned and looked at the long swords stuck in the trees around him. There were a total of 10 long swords. The cultivation of these old men was not inferior to his. If he really wanted to fight them head-on, he would have to risk his life. Should he risk his life? After thinking about it, he immediately decided to give it a try. After this, he would be able to achieve his goal. He appeared with a long sword on his waist and another in his hand. When he got close, he didn't say anything and didn't wait for the 6 elders to get into formation. He had already activated the heaven-murdering incantation. The long sword silently slashed an elder's throat, then another elder's. When it slashed the 2nd elder, there was a muffled bang, and the fragments of the long sword shot out in all directions. The other 4 elders only felt their bodies relax, and they immediately regained control of their bodies. Before they had time to be happy, the fragments had already arrived, and they couldn't dodge in time. Some used palms, some punched, but they couldn't block the fragments. The fragments pierced through their bodies without any obstruction, and the protective vital energy was also useless. Suddenly, blood gushed out uncontrollably, and the ground was dyed red. When these fragments passed through their bodies, they also exploded with a tyrannical force, causing serious damage to their internal organs. They almost lost the ability to fight, and this surprised Chu Li. The power of these fragments was so great. Although it was inferior to the heaven-murdering incantation, it had other uses. The heaven-murdering incantation could kill people directly, but it could only kill 1 or 2 people at a time. The long sword couldn't withstand it, and the power of this collapse could seriously injure a few people. Chu Li pulled out the long sword from his waist and was about to perform the second sword. "Let's go." The remaining 4 elders looked at each other and said in a low voice. They were all stained with blood, and their clothes were bright red, but their eyes were bright. Not only did they not look weak, but they were also full of energy. The aura around them was monstrous, like a raging wave. Chu Li saw that the situation was not good, and just as he was about to shift, boom! 4 explosions sounded almost at the same time, and the 4 elders instantly turned into 4 clouds of blood mist, shrouding a radius of 10 feet. The 4 clouds of blood mist overlapped, and it was almost impossible to see anything in the area. When the blood mist settled and disappeared, everything was bare. Within a radius of 10 feet, not even a blade of grass grew. The ground seemed to have been scraped, and it was clean. The soil seemed to have been refurbished, and the original towering old trees had disappeared completely. Chu Li was embedded in an old tree 10 feet away, motionless, and his face was as pale as a sheet. He was almost unconscious, but he still had a trace of consciousness left, and he knew that his situation was not good. He did not expect these 4 people to be so terrifying. They did not struggle at all, and directly performed the heavenly demonic disintegration secret skill. The power was shocking, and it was even more powerful than a great Azura self-destruction. He only felt that his body was empty and all of his inner energy was gone. His internal organs were shattered, and he died on his last breath. Now, even if an innate master came, he could only wait for death. The spiritual energy around him surged and wanted to repair his body, but the remaining invisible force in his body was expelling the spiritual energy. It could not get close to him, and he could not repair himself. Instead, his injuries were aggravated by this invisible force, and they kept getting worse. He showed a trace of regret. If this went on, he would really die once, and he could only use the life and death scripture. Footsteps sounded, and he squinted his eyes, unable to see and unable to move. Fortunately, he could still use the omniscient mirror, but the range was only 10 feet, and he saw a young man walking over. This young man was tall and full of heroic spirit. His long, narrow eyes and thin lips showed that he was not a generous person. He squinted his eyes to size Chu Li up, and then clapped his hands and praised, "Amazing! I admire you." Chu Li was secretly puzzled. Why did this guy seem to have seen the previous scene? Under the observation of the omniscient mirror, there was no place for him to hide. So how could he hide from him? The young man chuckled. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Peng Chenghua, a disciple of the Tianfeng sect." Chu Li's heart skipped a beat, and he knew his identity. This Peng Chenghua was an outstanding young disciple of the Tianfeng sect, just like himself and the Flying Heaven sect. They were both future hopes and future leaders. He did not see him at the Tianfeng sect before, so he must have gone out and now coincidentally appeared here. Peng Chenghua smiled. "Which sect are you a disciple of?" Chu Li struggled to open his eyes and did not speak. "The Sword Demon sect?" Peng Chenghua shook his head. "The disciples of the Sword Demon sect are indeed powerful, but it's a pity. Why don't you hand over a sword technique from the Sword Demon sect in exchange for your life? How about that?" Chu Li closed his eyes. "Seems like you don't agree." Peng Chenghua sighed. "You're loyal to your sect, so I can only send you to heaven." He took a step forward and smiled. "Dying like this, don't you think it's a pity?" Chapter 2101. Chu Li strenuously asked, "What sword technique do you want?" "What sword technique did you use just now?" Peng Chenghua asked. "Its power is astonishing." Chu Li said, "Coalescence sword technique." "Coalescence sword technique?" Peng Chenghua frowned and scoffed. "Don't try to fool me. There is no such sword technique. Not the heavenly sword, the heaven-killing sword, or the heaven-punishing sword? Chu Li shook his head strenuously. His movements were so subtle that he could not even shake his head. He sighed and said, I didn't manage to cultivate these sword techniques. I only managed to cultivate this obscure sword technique. Coalescence sword technique. Peng Qinghua slowly nodded and said, Where did this sword technique come from? Chu Li said, There are many people who practice it in the sutra library in the sect, but I'm the only one who can achieve such power. Even if you want to learn it, you might not be able to unleash such power. You're trying to fool me, aren't you? Peng Qinghua approached Chu Li, picked up the long sword, and slowly pressed it against Chu Li's throat. Chu Li was embedded in the tree, coincidentally at the same height as Peng Qinghua. It was as if the two of them were talking while standing opposite each other. Chu Li sighed. I've already come this far. There's no doubt that I'll die. You won't be able to save me even if you have spirit pills. Peng Qinghua could already feel that Chu Li's breath was weak, and it did not seem like he was faking it. Moreover, he could tell that Chu Li's injuries were severe when he saw that blood was gushing out of his mouth. Thus, Peng Qinghua placed his hand on Chu Li's wrist. A stream of inner force immediately entered his body and collided with the power that was destroying his internal organs. Then it disappeared. Peng Qinghua's expression changed slightly. He slowly nodded and said, You are indeed very unlucky. The might of those fours' sky demon disintegration technique is astonishing. You will definitely die. What other wishes do you have before you die? Peng Qinghua had already determined that Chu Li would definitely die. Even if one consumed a spirit core, it would be expelled by this force. Even if one could avoid this force, the recovery rate of the spirit core wouldn't be as fast as it was destroyed. Their injuries would only worsen until they died. What do you want to do before you die? Peng Qinghua asked. I can help you achieve it. How about you give me the coalescence sword technique? Chu Li shook his head. The coalescence sword is a sword technique of the sect. It cannot be taught to outsiders. All right then, I'll send you on your way so that you can reincarnate as soon as possible. Peng Qinghua nodded, and the tip of the sword pierced forward again. It had already entered his throat, and fresh blood flowed down the blade. Chu Li wanted to shrink back, but unfortunately, there was a big tree behind him. There was nowhere for him to go. He showed a bitter expression. Why is Master Peng so cruel? I'm a person who's about to die. I can't live anymore, so how can I hand over the sword art? I won't be able to face the seniors of the sect after I die. If I die, then so be it. What's there to fear? He was guiding Peng Qinghua to not destroy his own body so that he could come back to life. Otherwise, if Peng Qinghua were to dismember his body in a fit of rage, or even split it into pieces, even the life and death scripture would not be able to revive him. If you don't hand it over, then suffer a little more before you die. Peng Qinghua said, I will think of a way to save you so that you won't die for the time being. You can suffer a little before you die. What do you think? Chu Li frowned and asked, Does Master Peng really want to go to such extremes? Peng Qinghua said, I don't care. I just want the coalescence sword technique. Are you going to hand it over or not? Chu Li shook his head and said, I won't hand over the sword technique. You should just give up. Then let's see who's more capable. Peng Qinghua said with a smile. His long and narrow eyes emitted a cold glint. He suddenly raised the tip of his sword and was about to slash Chu Li's shoulders and break his arms. Stop! A delicate voice suddenly shouted. Chu Li narrowed his eyes. He did not expect Qin Mingyun to appear here. Qin Mingyun was dressed in an emerald green gown. She floated down like a green cloud. Her face was covered with a white veil, revealing only a pair of bright eyes. Even so, the graceful figure under the emerald green gown was alluring enough. Peng Qinghua looked at her from head to toe and asked, Who are you? Qin Mingyun from the butterfly dance sect. Qin Mingyun scoffed and said, Who are you? Peng Qinghua from the Tianfeng sect. Peng Qinghua shook his head and said, Do you know this person, Miss Qin? I don't. Qin Mingyun said, Although I don't know him, I know that you've gone too far. How could you force a person who's about to die like this? You're inhumane. Huh. Peng Chenhua laughed and said, so Miss Qin has a bodhisattva's heart. Qi Mingyun said, no matter what, you shouldn't have done this. Let him go. She did not recognize Chu Li, but she could not bear to see him like this. If she did not do anything, she would feel uneasy and would feel guilty for the rest of her life. Instead, she could only bite the bullet and do something about it. Peng Chenhua was not an ordinary person. What if I don't let him go? Peng Chenhua laughed and said, are you going to fight me, Miss Qin? That's right. Qin Mingyun scoffed and said, if you're stubborn, I'll have no choice but to fight you. Can Miss Qin defeat me? Peng Chenhua was puzzled. As far as I know, it doesn't seem possible, right? You won't know until you try. Qin Mingyun said, let him go first. I'll cut off his left and right arms first. Peng Chenhua said as he shook his long sword and slashed it at Chu Li's right arm. Chu Li almost wanted to channel the sacrificial divine power to attack. Whether he could survive or not, he had to kill this guy first. At this moment, a soft moan was heard. This soft moan was like a whisper in one's ear before one fell asleep. It was gentle and intimate. When one heard this moan, one would feel an inexplicable sense of love. One would not want to kill anyone, and they would love each other. Chu Li's body trembled. Fortunately, the Mahavarokana in the void of his mind opened his eyes and started chanting the immobility scripture. Otherwise, he would have passed out and would never wake up again. Peng Chenhua's sword force instantly weakened. He withdrew his sword and looked at Qin Mingyun. What a powerful cloud dragon roar! Qin Mingyun scoffed. As soon as this light snort entered Peng Chenhua's mind, all the pores on his body opened up. He felt refreshed, excited, and happy. He suddenly felt that his behavior was indeed inappropriate. It was too dark and not open and magnanimous enough. Qin Mingyun said, young Master Peng, just let me have him. Her voice was calm and gentle. It sounded like an instruction, but it also sounded like an order. Peng Chenhua could not think of disobeying her at all. He could not wait to agree to it. Every inch of his body wanted to agree, but a trace of rationality made him feel that something was wrong. He struggled to open his mouth and agree to it. Instead, he looked at Qin Mingyun with a surprised expression. Qin Mingyun was also slightly surprised. She did not expect Peng Chenhua to be able to resist the cloud dragon roar. This was one of the most powerful heart techniques in the dancing butterfly sect. It was shockingly powerful. She rarely used it because it consumed a lot of energy. After using it, she would be dispirited for more than 10 days. Young Master Peng, Qin Mingyun called out again and channeled the heart technique even more fiercely. Sigh. Peng Chenhua shook his head. Forget it. Please, Miss Qin. Qin Mingyun smiled gently and curtsied. Thank you, young Master Peng. Peng Chenhua shook his head. Who asked me to encounter Miss Qin? I can't withstand the cloud dragon roar. The cloud dragon roar was not a bewitching technique. It only stimulated the bright side of the other party and made them feel protective of the fairer sex. It was a display of manliness. Therefore, Peng Chenhua was clear-headed and knew what to do. Chapter 21:02. Peng Chenhua took a step back and sighed. Miss Qin, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't waste your effort. Just send him to reincarnate. He's in great pain and his injuries are worsening. There's no saving him. Qin Mingyun did not say anything. She gently helped Chu Li up and wanted to put him down. Chu Li said softly, Thank you, Miss Qin. It's useless. Let me die on my own. What he wanted the most now was for the two of them to leave so that he could die on his own. Then he could use the life and death scripture to come back to life and recover. Unfortunately, it was difficult to fulfill this wish. Judging from Qin Mingyun's gaze, it was clear that she would not give up until she achieved her goal. There was no point in saying anything more. He could only obey and slowly move his body out of the tree. Chu Li let out a grunt and finally left the tree. He struggled to stand up straight. His forehead was covered in cold sweat, and his golden complexion had a tinge of green. It was getting worse. He won't last more than 2 hours, Peng Chenhua said. Chu Li nodded. Young Master Peng is right. Let me go and let me leave in peace. He wanted to kill Peng Changhua. If it were not for Qin Mingyun, Peng Changhua would have cut off his arms or even his limbs. He would not be able to escape the torture. Such a vicious person should not be left alive. He should be killed when he had the chance. But at this moment, he was calm and collected. It was as if nothing had happened. As if nothing had happened. No, I must save you. Qin Mingyun held his arm and felt him trembling. It was obvious that he was in great pain and did not want others to see it. Chu Li smiled bitterly. Miss Qin, we don't know each other. There's no need to do this, right? I believe in my instincts. I must save you, Qin Mingyun said. Young Master Peng, you should leave first. You're delaying me from saving you. Miss Qin, are you afraid that I'll harm you? Peng Changhua shook his head and laughed. If I really wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have waited until now. Young Master Peng, please, Qin Mingyun said. Peng Changhua looked at her and then at Chu Li. He nodded. All right then. I wish that your wish will come true. Saving this person's life will be a good deed. He then glided away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Chu Li sighed. Miss Qin, if you really want to save me, you should bring me back to the Dancing Butterfly sect. Why? Qin Mingyun asked. Chu Li said, that young Master Peng is not a magnanimous person. He will definitely think of a way to get rid of me. Only by going to your sect can I be at ease to save people, or else I will be disturbed by young Master Peng anytime. But your body, Qin Mingyun hesitated. She could use void diversion to return to the sect, but Chu Li's body could not withstand void diversion at all. He would die without a doubt, so the best way was to save him here. But what he said wasn't wrong. With Peng Chenghua's temperament, he would definitely find a way to interfere with him saving people. It would be impossible to save people successfully. Chu Li said, don't worry, there's a force in my body that's hurting me, but this inner energy is extremely overbearing and won't allow any other force to enter my body. So, even if I use void diversion, I can still withstand it. But, Qin Mingyun hesitated. Chu Li said, life and death are fated. If that's what I have to do, I'll accept it. Sigh. All right. Qin Mingyun nodded in the end. She could only choose between the two. In the end, she felt that what Chu Li said made sense. So, she decided to take a gamble and put herself on the line. She helped Chu Li up and said softly, let's go then. Chu Li nodded lightly. Qin Mingyun suddenly flashed, and her shadow gradually dimmed. Chu Li's body dimmed as well, and then he disappeared without a trace. Puffed. Chu Li violently spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body went limp as he fell onto Qin Mingyun's fragrant and soft body. Fortunately, Qin Mingyun was prepared and quickly held him up. Are you okay? Blood gushed out of Chu Li's mouth, and then his appearance changed. He looked like Wu Yuanzi. He struggled to sit on a rock and looked up at the towering mountain opposite him. Indeed, it was the front gate of the Dancing Butterfly sect, but they had not entered the Dancing Butterfly sect yet. They were just outside. Qin Mingyun gently put him down and sighed. We're home. Why don't we treat our wounds here? Chu Li said, it's not a big deal. All right. Qin Mingyun nodded lightly. She held him up with one hand and lifted his feet off the ground to maintain his balance so that he would not suffer from the jolting. Her light body technique was amazing, and she silently passed through the formation. Then, she brought Chu Li into the Dancing Butterfly sect, and then her feet fluttered as if they were riding the wind. Junior Sister Qin, who is this? When a fellow disciple met them, he curiously asked while sizing Chu Li up. He's a friend of mine. Don't ask for now. We'll talk about it later. Qin Mingyun replied without stopping, and she looked anxious. They could tell that Chu Li's expression was not good, so they stopped bothering him. Instead, they curiously stared at their backs, and then began to discuss. Junior Sister Qin actually brought a man back. How rare. The young lady has grown up. They're just friends. I don't think they're in a romantic relationship. That might not be the case. Although Chu Li's body was heavily injured and his condition was deteriorating, his spirit was still strong. He activated the omniscient mirror and began to observe the entire Dancing Butterfly sect. Almost all the people in the Dancing Butterfly sect were women, and all of them were lithe and graceful, as if they were dancing. A faint fragrance floated in the air, as if it was a country of fragrances. Chu Li stopped using the omniscient mirror and stopped exhausting his spirit. The treatment later would really exhaust his spirit, so he could not afford to be careless. Qin Mingyun brought him over the wall of a courtyard and landed in the courtyard. When she helped Chu Li to sit by the stone table, she suddenly screamed and almost let go. Chu Li looked at her and knew that she had finally realized that his appearance had changed. She was really careless to only notice it now. Qin Mingyun gently put Chu Li down and said in surprise, "Will you see?" Chu Li said, "Miss Qin, we meet again. I'll repay you for saving my life in the future. Don't be so polite." Qin Mingyun rolled her eyes at him. "Why is it you?" Chu Li sighed. "If it wasn't for you, Miss Qin, I would have died." "That's because you're lucky," Qin Mingyun said. "I also sensed an extremely powerful force, as if a treasure was born, so I came to have a look and saw you." Chu Li said, "The four elders of the Profound Heart sect used the heavenly demonic disintegration secret skill, so there's almost no hope for me with this injury. Everyone has to leave, sooner or later. It's time for me to leave too." "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I have a way." Qin Mingyun rolled her eyes at him. "You're really brave. You fought against 4 Profound Heart sect elders on your own. You're really—" She shook her head as she spoke. She felt that Chu Li was courting death. Chu Li said, "The Dancing Butterfly sect doesn't have any secret healing skills, right?" The Dancing Butterfly sect was famous for the heavenly demonic dance and the heavenly demonic song, which could make people fall head over heels for them. However, she had never heard of any secret healing skills. "I'll try," Qin Mingyun said. She sat behind Chu Li and gently pressed her palms on his back. Instantly, 2 warm forces entered Chu Li's body and began to enter his organs. Chapter 2103. As soon as her aura entered her internal organs, an invisible force suddenly surged out, like a gust of wind sweeping through leaves. In the blink of an eye, her aura disappeared without a trace, as if it had never been there. Qin Mingyun clearly sensed the unusualness, so she sent out another strand of even purer aura, yet it was still swept away and vanished. She gently released her palm and stared at Chu Li with a frown. Chu Li sighed. "Forget it. Don't waste your effort." "Who said it's a waste of effort?" Qin Mingyun rolled her eyes at him, stood up, and paced with her hands behind her back. She had long since removed the white veil covering her face. As she walked, she would occasionally raise her head to look at the sky or bite her fingernails. Her eyebrows were sometimes tightly knitted and sometimes relaxed. Her jade-like face was sometimes smiling and sometimes tense. Chu Li, on the other hand, was wondering if he should perform the life and death scripture, but he was not in a hurry. Even if he were to die from severe injuries, it would not be too late for him to perform the life and death scripture. As long as his body was not damaged, he could be resurrected. Other than the life and death scripture, he also had the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture, which could guarantee his resurrection. Therefore, he still had the leisure to look at Qin Mingyun's changing expression. He could tell that Qin Mingyun was struggling internally. Chu Li was secretly surprised to see her like this. Could it be that Qin Mingyun really had a way to cure him? He had never heard of any secret healing techniques of the Dancing Butterfly sect. The most powerful ones were the demonic dance and the demonic song. The rest of their martial arts were very ordinary. Could it be that they were hiding a very powerful healing technique? These large sects usually had their own secret arts. Outsiders did not know about them, so it was not surprising that the Dancing Butterfly sect had their own secret arts. After a while, Qin Mingyun turned to look at Chu Li with her bright eyes. Chu Li smiled at her. "Forget it, Miss Qin. I'll do it myself. Can you cure it?" Qin Mingyun asked. Chu Li said, "I'm going into isolated cultivation. Don't disturb me for the next 10 days. His injuries can be healed in 10 days? Qin Mingyun snorted. She faintly felt that something was wrong. With this kind of injury, it was impossible for him to last more than 10 days. He said 10 days, but it was very likely that he wanted to pass away quietly and did not want to be a burden to her. Thinking of this, she became determined and said, "I do have a secret healing technique but you have to keep it a secret. You can't let a third person know about it. Chuli asked, what kind of secret skill would require such secrecy? Qin Mingyun said, of course it's an extremely powerful secret technique. What's the price? Chuli asked. However, extremely powerful secret techniques usually required a sufficient price, and there was no such thing as a free lunch. Qin Mingyun frowned. I need a year of cultivation. Chuli shook his head lightly. Then I owe him a big favor. It's good that you know. Qin Mingyun humphed. Then let's begin. Chuli nodded slowly and did not reject the offer. For young martial arts masters, 1 year of cultivation was very important. The growth of cultivation was similar to growth and development. Usually, it would stop growing rapidly after a certain point. The younger one was, the lower the chances of a bottleneck appearing. As one grew older, the chances of a bottleneck appearing increased. A year of cultivation was nothing for older people because later on, they would have to rely on accumulation. Once they reached a bottleneck in their cultivation, they would need years of accumulation to break through the bottleneck and advance to the next level. If he couldn't break through the bottleneck, there wouldn't be much difference even if he was 100 years old and 30 years old. The existence of a bottleneck depended on one's talent and cultivation level when one was young. After one was 100 years old, it would be very difficult to improve one's cultivation level. Cultivation was accumulated step by step, and from there, a quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change. Therefore, if one didn't have any fortuitous encounters, one's cultivation level during one's youth would determine one's cultivation level for the rest of one's life. One should take advantage of their youth to cultivate diligently. Losing a year of cultivation would have a huge impact, so he owed Qin Mingyun a big favor. Qin Mingyun sat cross-legged behind him and pressed both palms on his back. A cool force drifted into his body, and it was as soft as fog. It bypassed that strange force and was not expelled. Everything was fine. Chu Li's internal organs were immediately nourished by this cool force, and he felt better. He could not help but feel energized as he hurriedly channeled his energy to merge with this refreshing force to speed up his recovery. Meanwhile, that strange force seemed to ignore Qin Mingyun's refreshing force and allowed it to heal Chu Li's internal organs. Chu Li felt that it was amazing. After his inner energy merged with this cool force, it instantly became stronger. As the cool force entered his body, his inner energy cultivation level kept increasing, and his meridians were also slowly expanding. His internal organs were also becoming stronger. At first, they were slowly recovering, but after they recovered, they started to become stronger. They were even stronger than before he was injured. Chu Li suddenly understood why Qin Mingyun needed to keep this a secret. Her inner energy was like spiritual energy, but it was stronger than spiritual energy. It strengthened her cultivation level and strengthened her body. It was like the enlightenment technique, but it was even more amazing than the enlightenment technique. She could use less inner energy to increase more inner energy. It was really mysterious. After a while, Chu Li said softly, "It's done." He felt that he could suppress that strange force and use the cloud slashing power to slowly devour it. The force produced by the fourth elder of Mystery Heart Sect's self-destruction was gradually defeated by Qin Mingyun's force. It was no longer a threat. Qin Mingyun gently let go of her palms, and her face was as pale as a sheet. Although Chu Li did not turn around, he could see it clearly. He pretended not to know and continued channeling to heal his injuries. Soon, that strange force was expelled from his body. He realized that his cultivation level had increased, and his meridians had become thicker. This little change was very precious to him now. He had now reached the peak of his cultivation. He had many strange techniques, but it was difficult for him to improve further. Ever since he cultivated the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture to the peak, it was difficult to improve further. His cultivation level had also stagnated. Unless he obtained a more powerful heart technique, it would be extremely difficult for him to improve even a little. Now, this little bit of improvement was better than him cultivating for half a year or even a year. After a while, Chu Li turned around. Qi Mingyun had returned to normal. Her face had regained its rosy color, but her eyes were still a little blurred. Chu Li fist saluted. What secret skill is this? Qi Mingyun shook her head. I didn't expect you to have such a fortuitous encounter. I had a fortuitous encounter. Chu Li nodded. I got it in the Grandmaster realm. Qi Mingyun said, It's the cloud's slashing power, right? Chu Li looked at her in surprise. He did not expect to hear these 4 words from her. He thought that the cloud slashing power was only passed down in the lower realm, and it was impossible for the Grandmaster realm to know about it, let alone the heavenly demonic realm. He was very surprised to hear it from her. Qi Mingyun said, It really is the cloud slashing power. You know about this? Chu Li was surprised. Back then, I obtained the cloud slashing tome and started cultivating it after discovering its wonders. However, I didn't know about the details of the cloud slashing power. It seems that you know about it, Miss Qin. Of course I do. Qi Mingyun nodded. The cloud slashing power is the ultimate divine skill of the Ending Cloud sect. The Ending Cloud sect? Chu Li was confused. Qi Mingyun said, It seems that you haven't heard of the Ending Cloud sect either. Chu Li said, I hope that Miss Qin can explain. The Ending Cloud sect is a hidden sect, Qi Mingyun said. This secret skill of mine was passed down by the Ending Cloud sect. Chu Li said, No wonder, Qi Mingyun exclaimed. I didn't expect that I would cultivate the Ending Cloud sect's lotus-planting secret skill, while you've obtained the cloud-slashing power. It's only by coincidence that we managed to achieve such a miraculous effect. Otherwise, we might not have been able to withstand that force. Chu Li slowly nodded. That's true. In that case, the Dancing Butterfly sect and the Ending Cloud sect are related? Chapter 2104. Chu Li asked, Is the cloud insect still around? Qi Mingyun shook her head. It's gone, but there are many branches of the cloud insect. Most of them live in seclusion and don't show themselves to the world. They won't tell anyone about the cloud insect unless they meet a branch of the cloud insect. Chu Li shook his head. I really don't know about this. Is there a cloud insect in the Outland? Qi Mingyun said, Although the martial arts of the cloud insect is similar to the heavenly demonic power, it's different. That's why they can hide from the celestials. According to my estimation, many branches of the cloud insect are hidden in the Outland. Chu Li said, No wonder I could get this. His thoughts wandered. Since they could live in seclusion in the Outland, it was not impossible for them to spread to the lower realm. That was why he could get the cloud-slashing treasure book. It was even possible that the branches of the cloud insect could establish a sect in the lower realm, just like the light-surpassing realm. When he thought of this, he suddenly wanted to go back and see Shao Qi and Sun Mingyue, even Lu Yurong and Xiao Shi in the lower realm. Although it had not been long, it felt like a lifetime had passed. Qi Mingyun said, Obtaining the inheritance of the cloud insect requires luck. You're lucky, and more importantly, you met me. Otherwise, the lotus planting technique wouldn't be so powerful. It'll be hard for you to recover. Chu Li nodded. I've always been lucky. Otherwise, I wouldn't have obtained the cloud-slashing power in the Outland. Qi Mingyun asked, Since you're being hunted by the elders of the Profound Heart sect, why did you come out? I had no choice. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. This involves a war between sections. The Heaven Flying sect and the Profound Heart sect are going to war. Qi Mingyun frowned. It can't be that bad, right? Didn't I just kill Mo Jishuan, and they killed Huang Hemming? So many masters die every day. They won't make a difference. Chu Li laughed. He stood up and walked with his hands behind his back. He circled the courtyard twice. Qi Mingyun could not hide her curiosity as she followed him and kept asking. Being stared at by her clear eyes, Chu Li really could not bear to reject her. He could only say, This involves the dignity of the sect. If we soften, everyone will dare to kill the disciples of the sect. My sect thinks so, and so does the Profound Heart sect. I see. Qi Mingyun nodded in understanding. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard as Lu Qingshu gently pushed open the door and entered. When she saw Chu Li, she took a few glances at him before her gaze fell on Qi Mingyun's face. She glanced back and forth between the two of them, as if she was trying to figure out the relationship between them. She was dressed in an apricot gown and did not wear a white veil, revealing her beautiful face that was bright and flawless. Although she was not as good-looking as Xiaoqi and Sun Minghua, she was still a rare beauty. No one could tell that she had aged, and she looked like Qin Mingyun's older sister. Chuli gave a fist salute. "Senior Lu, Master." Qin Mingyun's face was slightly red, and she hurriedly said, "Young Master Wu is injured. I brought him back to treat his injuries." "Nonsense." Lu Qingxue frowned and scolded. Chuli hurriedly said, "I've implicated Miss Qin. I'm ashamed." Lu Qingxue stared at Qin Mingyun and said coldly, "Your cultivation level regressed because you used a secret technique, right?" "Yes, Master," Qin Mingyun said with a guilty conscience. Lu Qingxue snorted and stared at her without saying anything. Qin Mingyun lowered her head, not daring to look at her. Just as Chuli was about to speak, Lu Qingxue turned her head and looked at him with a cold gaze. She said, "Young Master Wu, you're very lucky." She knew that if she had to use a secret technique to save him, he would definitely have suffered a fatal injury, and Chuli had escaped with his life. Chuli gave a fist salute and said, "I'll repay you for saving my life in the future." "There's no need for that." Lu Qingxue scoffed. "It's better for you to stay away from us." She did not have a good impression of Chuli. She felt that there was something strange about him, and she could not see through him. It would be fine if he was a top-notch master, as her cultivation level was not high enough to see through him. However, Wu Yuanxi was only a young master, and he had not reached the peak, so it was strange for him to have this kind of feeling. It was better to stay away from such a person to avoid getting into trouble. The Dancing Butterfly sect was not a major sect like the Sword Demon sect, and they did not have strong resistance. Qin Mingyun quickly said, "Master, young Master Wu knows the cloud-slashing power." Lu Qingxue turned to look at Qin Mingyun and frowned. "Cloud-slashing power?" "Yes." Qin Mingyun quickly nodded and said, "How would I dare to lie to you, Master?" Lu Qingxue suddenly reached out her hand and slid in front of Chu Li, then grabbed his wrist with her mouth. Chu Li moved his hand slightly, dodged it, and sent it back. Lu Qingxue frowned and looked at him. Earlier, his vision blurred, and he managed to dodge her touch. Later on, he noticed that something was amiss, so he sent his wrist back. Such reflexes and speed were not ordinary masters, and the strength of his martial arts was not inferior to hers, perhaps even stronger. No wonder she could not see through him. Wu Yuanxi was amazing to have such martial arts at such a young age. Chuli looked at her with a smile. Lu Qingxue probed his wrist and channeled some inner energy into it. When it collided with Chu Li's inner energy, it immediately returned to her finger. She nodded lightly and looked at Chu Li. "You've cultivated the cloud-slashing power." Chu Li repeated what he had said. It was nothing more than a fortuitous encounter in the beyond heavenly realm, where he obtained the cloud-slashing treasure tome. After cultivating the cloud-slashing power, he realized that it was extremely mysterious and overbearing and could not be destroyed. Fortunately, the cloud-slashing power was not as conspicuous as the heavenly demonic power, and even in the beyond heavenly realm, it was not noticed. It seemed like it was between the heavenly demonic power and the beyond heavenly realm's inner energy, which was quite strange. Since you're the successor of the cloud-slashing power, you're not considered an outsider. Lu Qingxue nodded lightly, and the expression on her beautiful face softened. She said, "Now you know that we're from the cloud-slashing sect, right?" "Yes, Miss Qin told me." Chu Li smiled. "I can write down the cloud-slashing power and give it to Miss Qin." "No need. No need." Qin Mingyun quickly waved her hand. The heavenly demonic power she cultivated was not the cloud-slashing power, so it was too late to change the heart technique now. Chu Li said, "The cloud-slashing power is very exquisite, and there's a special way to cultivate it. It allows you to devour other people's inner energy to improve yourself, and once you encounter an opportunity, you'll improve by leaps and bounds." His inner energy was extremely pure, So if he used the cloud slashing power to devour other people's inner energy, he would gain very little. Even if he devoured the inner energy of other masters, it would only increase a little. However, Qin Mingyun's current cultivation level was much lower, so if she could cultivate the cloud slashing power, she would improve by leaps and bounds. The cloud slashing power was important to her, but it was not that important to him. If he had not come to the heavenly demonic realm, he had been cultivating the supreme diamond scripture, and the cloud slashing power would have been cast aside. Qin Mingyun quickly waved her hand. She did not want Chu Li to think that she was blackmailing him. Lu Qingxue had glanced at Qin Mingyun, but did not say anything. The cloud slashing power was indeed very good, but she would not force her disciple if she did not like it. Chu Li smiled. Compared to my life, the cloud slashing power is nothing. I'm only able to achieve my current cultivation level because of the cloud slashing power. If Miss Qin cultivates it, I'm sure you'll be able to reach my level in a short time. Without waiting for Qin Mingyun to speak, he quickly waved his hand and said, Miss Qin, if you refuse again, you'll be looking down on me. But Qin Mingyun did not want it. Chapter 2105. Dream Clouds. Since young Master Wu is sincere in giving it to you, just agree to it. Lu Qingxue gently nodded and said, the cloud slashing power is indeed exquisite beyond compare. Moreover, if you cultivate the cloud slashing power, you can also enter the Grandmaster's realm. You don't have to be afraid. No one will recognize you. The Beyond Heaven's realm was far more prosperous and lively than the heavenly demon realm. Furthermore, the local customs and customs were different as well, which was quite attractive to the people of the heavenly demon realm. Even if they couldn't settle down there, it would be great if they could stay there for a period of time and experience the different customs. However, the heavenly demonic power would usually expose one's identity. Furthermore, the Grandmasters and the heavenly demonic realms were sworn enemies. Once the celestial beings found out about it, they would definitely chase after their lives as if they were facing a great enemy. It would be very difficult for them to escape. Originally, the people of the heavenly demon realm did not care about the Beyond Heaven's realm. However, as the two realms fought for a long time, they formed a grudge that was difficult to resolve. However, the people of the heavenly demon realm still wanted to see the Beyond Heaven's realm. After all, with their abilities, almost no one would be able to detect them if they were to hide in the Beyond Heaven's realm. Compared to the heavenly demonic power, the cloud slashing power's greatest advantage was that it would not be mistaken as the heavenly demonic power by the celestials and would not be discovered. Many of the dancing butterfly sect members had infiltrated the Beyond Heavenly realm, so they had a good understanding of the place. Unfortunately, the dancing butterfly sect did not manage to obtain the cloud slashing power technique. Chu Li smiled and nodded. Indeed. All right, Qin Mingyun said, I won't leak it. Chu Li said, since I've handed it over to you, Miss Qin, you can do whatever you want with it. You can also pass it on to your disciples. Qin Mingyun understood the meaning behind his words and knew that it was not appropriate to pass it on to her fellow disciples. Once the news spread, the Beyond Heavenly realm would be in big trouble. These disciples of the dancing butterfly sect who cultivated the cloud slashing power technique could live in the Beyond Heavenly realm without fear and become celestial beings. After these people obtained high positions, they would definitely stir up a bigger storm. As for the fact that these people would be able to obtain a lot of information, Chu Li did not care at all. To the heavenly demons, the Grandmaster boundary was like an unguarded place. They had already figured out all the information about the Grandmaster boundary, so there was no need to worry about leaking any information about the Grandmaster boundary. Qin Mingyun nodded lightly and said, Young Master Wu, don't worry. I won't teach it to anyone else. At most, I'll teach it to my disciples. Chu Li smiled. Of course you can, Senior Lu. Lu Qingxue nodded. Then I won't stand on ceremony. She had been curious about the cloud slashing power for a long time, and when she heard that there was a chance to cultivate it, she was excited. She muttered to herself for a moment, then said, I can't take advantage of you. How about this? The Zhuyun sect also had some ancient secret manuals. Even though they're all incomplete, you could take a look. Incomplete? Chu Li's interest was piqued. Lu Qingxue said, almost all of these fragments require the cloud's slashing power to cultivate, but unfortunately, we don't have the cloud's slashing power. Even our heavenly demon dance and heavenly demon song require the cloud slashing power. Chu Li muttered, if that's the case, then there's no need to keep the cloud slashing power secret anymore. It can be taught in the sect. This, Lu Qingxue muttered. The cloud slashing power was exquisite, and it was Wei Yuanxi's secret technique, which he had obtained through a fortuitous encounter. Although it was originally a martial art of the cloud slashing sect, it did not belong to the dancing butterfly sect because of that. If Qin Mingyun learned the cloud slashing power from her, it would not affect Chu Li much because it would not affect him much. However, if all the disciples of the butterfly dance sect cultivated it, it would be a different story and it would definitely spread. With the ingenuity of the cloud slashing power, there might be people who could surpass Chu Li. This was what she thought, and she felt that it was too much. Chu Li smiled. If it wasn't for Miss Qin's help, I might have lost my life, let alone the cloud slashing power. Since it can improve the strength of the dancing butterfly sect, it doesn't matter if everyone cultivates it. No, Lu Qingxue slowly shook her head. It's not suitable for everyone to learn such an antique study. If everyone could learn such an antique study, then why not teach the sect's antique study to everyone? It was enough to choose a few people with high qualifications to teach it to top-notch masters. Chu Li said, then it's up to you. Since you're so generous, we can't be stingy either. Lu Qingxue smiled. She was surprised by Chu Li's generosity. If she were in his shoes, she would not be so generous to pass on her fortuitous encounter to others. Chu Li Fist saluted and said nothing else. Lu Qingxue said, I'll be back soon. After she finished speaking, she fluttered away. Qin Mingyun sighed. You shouldn't have given me the cloud slashing power. Chu Li smiled. Miss Qin, you don't like it? This is a martial art that you rely on to survive. How can you just pass it on to others? Qin Mingyun shook her head. Chu Li said, compared to my life, this martial art is nothing. It's not the same. Qin Mingyun disagreed. Chu Li got up and went into the house. He sat in front of the table in front of the window and began to grind the ink. Once the ink was done, he picked up the brush and wrote down the heart technique of the cloud slashing power. He did not hold back and wrote down all the cloud slashing power he had obtained. He blew a few pages dry and handed it to Qin Mingyun with a smile. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. Qin Mingyun took it and lowered her head to read the heart technique. After a while, she looked up at Chu Li. This is the cloud slashing power? Chu Li nodded. Qin Mingyun exclaimed, what an exquisite heart technique. As she flipped through the pages, she tried to circulate the heart technique. Although it was difficult and the route of the heart technique was extremely complicated, it required a good memory and a strong enough soul energy. However, the heart technique she cultivated was originally a branch of the cloud slashing power. Whether it was the heavenly demonic dance or the heavenly demonic song, they had extremely high requirements for the soul energy. Otherwise, she would not have been able to cultivate the heavenly demonic dance and the heavenly demonic song. Therefore, the disciples of the dancing butterfly sect all had strong soul energy. This was also why there were very few disciples in the dancing butterfly sect. Due to the high requirements for aptitude, they could not be compared to other sections. For example, sects like the Flying Heaven sect also had high requirements for their disciples' aptitude, but they could not be compared to the dancing butterfly sect. Unfortunately, due to the limitations of their martial arts, the dancing butterfly sect could not be considered as a top sect even though they had a high requirement for aptitude. They were ranked behind the Flying Heaven sect. While the two were talking, Lu Qingxue fluttered over with a dark purple wooden box in her hand. She placed it on the table. Qin Mingyun handed over 5 pieces of paper with both hands. Master, this is the cloud slashing power. Lu Qingxue took it and flipped through it. She looked up at Chu Li and smiled. It's indeed exquisite. Thank you, young Master Wu. Chu Li shook his head. Senior Lu, you're welcome. We're not strangers now. Yes. Lu Qingxue nodded and patted the wooden box. This is an incomplete manual passed down by the cloud-slashing sect. It's thousands of years old. You can flip through it. You might learn something. Chu Li Fizz saluted and did not say anything else. He immediately opened the purple wooden box. Suddenly, a refreshing and fragrant scent wafted out. Chu Li gently took out the 5 thin books. The 5 thin books were filled with the vicissitudes of time. It was obvious that they were ancient books at first glance. However, they were not damaged. In fact, they were very neat. He quickly flipped through them. Suddenly, he raised his eyebrows and looked at one of the incomplete books. It was a heart technique called the Soul Devouring Technique. His Heavenly Star Insight technique circulated and deduced at lightning speed. He could immediately tell that this soul-devouring technique was very mysterious. It was actually of the same origin as the cloud-slashing power. What was more amazing was that this was the heart technique after the cloud-slashing power. Those who had not cultivated the cloud-slashing power would not be able to tell. They would only feel that this soul-devouring technique was difficult to cultivate and its power was not strong. However, Chu Li, who had cultivated the cloud-slashing power, knew that this was not the soul-devouring technique, but the cloud-slashing power. Chapter 2106. His mind raced as he raised his head and said with a smile, "What's with this soul-devouring art? It's an incomplete version. It's called soul-devouring technique, but it's not powerful at all. It's much weaker than our heavenly demonic dance or heavenly demonic song. That's why no one cultivates it," Lu Qingxue said. "You have to be careful too. If you really cultivate it, be careful of the backlash." Chu Li said slowly, "This soul-devouring technique and the cloud-slashing power heart technique are of the same origin. They're very compatible. It's likely to be the heart technique for the next level of the cloud-slashing power. I'll give it a try." He thought about not revealing it and cultivated himself. However, he restrained his greed in the end. To take, one must first give. He said it openly because Lu Qingxue and the others had cultivated the soul-devouring technique, and it was difficult to hide it. Also, he had many divine techniques and did not value the cloud-slashing power that much. Moreover, he could form a deep friendship with the dancing butterfly sect and influence them. This would be very convenient for him in the future. Moreover, although he possessed the life and death scripture and the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture, which allowed him to come back to life, Qin Mingyun did not know that she had indeed exposed her secret technique to save him. He had to return this favor. Lu Qingxue was stunned and looked at him in surprise. Chu Li passed the soul-devouring technique to her. Lu Qingxue took it and slowly flipped through it. She nodded. It's indeed of the same origin. Is it really the heart technique for the next level of the cloud-slashing power? Chu Li nodded. Most likely. My instincts are very accurate. Senior Lu, we're really lucky. We're basking in your glory. Lu Qingxue put down the soul-devouring technique secret manual and smiled. I didn't expect to be so lucky. Thank you. Chu Li waved his hand. Lu Qingxue said, "The Flying Heaven sect and Profound Heart sect are going to fight?" Chu Li frowned. "I'm trying to think of a way to stop it. If there's a war, I don't know how many casualties there will be. Unfortunately, I'm not strong enough to stop them." "Then you have to be careful." Lu Qingxue said, "Profound Heart sect is stronger than you think. Also, they're close to the Sky Wind sect. Be careful not to be tricked." Chu Li Fizz saluted. For her to be able to say this much, it was clear that the Dancing Butterfly Sect's information network was extremely fast, even better than that of the Flying Heaven sect. This was the unique advantage of the Dancing Butterfly sect. As a woman, it was very easy for her to obtain information. If Chu Li had heard of this earlier, he would not have needed to spend so much effort to go to the Heavenly Wind sect. He would have been able to conclude that the two sects had formed an alliance. If you really want to fight, you can ask the Sword Demon sect for help. Lu Qingxue came up with an idea for him. You are friends with Murong Chou. The people of the Demonic Sword sect are not scheming and are very good to your friends. You can trust him. Otherwise, The dancing butterfly sect wouldn't have let the matter rest after their disciple was snatched by the sword demon sect's disciple. Chuli nodded. At dawn the next day, he returned to the flying heaven sect. He was prepared to cultivate the cloud-slashing power technique and master the last 3 layers. His cultivation base would advance by another layer, and the next time he met the elders of the Profound Heart sect, he would give them a surprise. The Flying Heaven sect was empty, with almost no one around. The only ones left behind were some old fellows who preferred peace and quiet. The entire Flying Heaven sect seemed to have quieted down, giving off a feeling that the place was deserted. Chuli had just returned to his courtyard and sat down with a helpless look on his face. He could see that Qin Mingyun had a good impression of him. If they continued to interact, it was very likely that he would win her heart. This made Chuli run away, not daring to stay any longer. He did not come here to talk about love or find a woman, but to find out the truth of the heavenly demonic realm. He wanted to step into the upper echelons of the heavenly demonic realm and change the decision of the heavenly demonic realm. After these days of observation and analysis, he now knew that the heavenly demonic realm was completely different from the beyond heavenly realm. There was no elders guild in the beyond heavenly realm. They were all sects and did not belong to each other. There were also ordinary people who could not cultivate martial arts and directly belong to the surrounding sections. There was no government or imperial court in the heavenly demonic realm. Moreover, the alliance between the heavenly demonic realm and the Azura was not the idea of the entire heavenly demonic realm. It was the doing of a certain sect in the heavenly demonic realm. He had already asked Qin Mingyun to help him find out which sect or sects were working together with the Azura to deal with the Celestials. The various sects in the heavenly demonic realm did not have any intention of invading the beyond heavenly realm. They were just curious about the beyond heavenly realm and wanted to explore it. However, because of the killing, old grudges were born and could not be resolved. Many sects had never come into contact with the beyond heavenly realm. Many of them had great resentment towards the beyond heavenly realm and wanted to ruthlessly deal with the Celestials. Therefore, they joined forces with the Azura to launch a big operation to severely damage the beyond heavenly realm. For those who were at the top of martial arts, the key was to quickly settle their debts. Among these sects, the Flying Heaven sect belonged to the forces of the beyond heavenly realm and also had connections with the Azura. He needed to quickly step into a high position to be able to influence the Flying Heaven sect's decisions. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and Hu Tianlai appeared. After entering the door, he waved his hand to indicate that Chuli did not need to be overly courteous. Then he directly came to the stone table and sat opposite Chuli. "Chuli, you've done a great deed." Chuli was stunned. Hu Tianlai said, "The Profound Heart sect elder who died outside the Tianfeng sect was you, right?" Chuli asked, "Masters Jr., why do you think so? The people outside thought that it was the Sword Demon sect, but I know it was you." Hu Tianlai laughed. What a powerful method to be able to kill so many Profound Heart sect elders. Chuli revealed a bitter smile. "I was almost killed. Fortunately, Miss Qin from the Dancing Butterfly sect saved me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to see you again, Masters Jr. Was it that dangerous?" Hu Tianlai asked. Chuli slowly nodded. They suddenly used the heavenly demonic disintegration technique in the end. I couldn't dodge it in time. Did the Tianfeng sect and Profound Heart sect no longer join forces? It should be because of the Sword Demon sect, Hu Tianlai said. This time, it could be considered as taking advantage of the situation. The Profound Heart sect and the Tianfeng sect did indeed join forces. It was really dangerous. I almost made a huge mistake. If it were not for the Profound Heart sect's suspicious and cautious nature, they would have attacked directly after the two sects joined forces without any strategy. The Flying Heaven sect's vitality would have been greatly damaged by now. They might even have been in danger of being annihilated. It was because of the Profound Heart sect cautiousness that gave Wu Yuanxi the opportunity to use the Sword Demon sect to scare away the other two sects and sow discord between the two sections. After all, the The people died in front of the Tianfeng sect. With the profound heart sect's suspicious nature, it was inevitable that they would suspect the Tianfeng sect of taking the opportunity to frame the Flying Heaven sect or the Sword Demon sect to weaken the profound heart sect's power. Chu Li said, "So, the three sects won't go to war? It'll be difficult." Hu Tianlai shook his head. "It'll be difficult to raise this anger. We have to consider the consequences of a war." Chu Li smiled. "That's good." Hu Tianlai sized him up. "UNC, you made a great contribution this time. Is there anything you want?" Chu Li shook his head. "I'm doing very well now. There's nothing I want. You've made such a great contribution. Naturally, you'll be rewarded," Hu Tianlai said. Chu Li thought about it. "Why don't you give me a treasure sword? I obtained a sword technique from the Sword Demon sect." Chapter 2107. Hu Tianlai got up and left. After a while, he came back with a long sword in a dark green scabbard. The scabbard was dark green and had an ancient aura. It was obvious that it was not a modern item, but an ancient sword with a long history. It was not an ordinary item. It made people curious and wanted to take the long sword out to take a look. Chu Li had the same impulse and stared at the long sword curiously. Hu Tianlai smiled and tossed it to Chu Li. "This is the treasure sword I gave you. It's called Wei Ming." Wei Ming. Chu Li reached out and caught it. It was the heaviest sword he had, so he slowly pulled it out of the scabbard. Suddenly, a pool of autumn water was reflected in front of him. As he gently pulled it out, the body of the sword trembled as if the autumn water was swaying. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. This sword was not an ordinary item. The body of the sword was light, as if it was weightless. It was thin and transparent, as if it was just a thin layer, but it was unusually heavy. It gave people a sense of stability when he held it in his hand. The combination of its lightness and weight showed its excellence. People could not help but like it when they held it and could not let it go. Chu Li shook it lightly, and the body of the sword rippled like the autumn water. His mood swayed along with it. "Good sword," Chu Li praised. "Of course it is." Hu Tianlai smiled. "This is the best sword in our armory. More importantly, although the body of the sword is bright, it doesn't reflect light. It's very convenient for sneak attacks." Chu Li smiled and shook the body of the sword. He realized that it was bright like water, but did not reflect light. There was no cold or killing intent. It was as warm as jade and did not reveal its imposing manner. Hu Tianlai stood up. "Rest well." Chu Li quickly said, "Masters Junior, are we going to let it go this time? What else do you want to do?" Hu Tianlai stopped and smiled. "We can't possibly counterattack, right?" Chu Li nodded. "Isn't this a good time to counterattack? We can attack when they are distracted and defeat one of them before they join forces. However, we need to be stronger than any of the sects to do so." That's a bold idea, but it's not realistic. Hu Tianlai shook his head. "Our strength is not as strong as the Tianfeng sect or the Profound Heart sect." Chu Li said, "Don't we still have Azura?" Azura. Hu Tianlai frowned. Chu Li could tell that he did not like Azuras either. This made him understand that most people in the sect didn't like Azura. It was just that the sect leader insisted on cooperating with Azura. However, he didn't know whether they would cooperate or not, so he had to find out. The Flying Heaven sect is going to cooperate with the Azura, right? Chu Li asked. "To deal with the Grandmasters." Hu Tianlai shook his head. "I haven't decided yet." Chu Li asked, "Masters Junior, do you know why we're working with the Azura?" "I don't have a good impression of the Azura. Killing is second nature to them, and they are cold and merciless. Cooperating with these fellows is no different from asking a tiger for its skin, and the gains do not make up for the losses." "Be quiet." Hu Tianlai hurriedly waved his hand and lowered his voice. "This is the sect leader's plan. Don't talk nonsense and make the sect leader unhappy." Chu Li asked, "Why exactly?" Hu Tianlai said, "The sovereign always has his reasons. We don't know the reason." Chu Li frowned. "If that's the case, Masters Junior, you don't know either?" Hu Tianlai shook his head. Chu Li scoffed. "I hope we're not leading a wolf into the house." Hu Tianlai said, "We're not the only ones working with the Azura. There are other sects, too. There must be a reason behind it, but it's kept a secret. Will it work if we ask them to help us deal with the Tianfeng sect and the Profound Heart sect?" Chu Li asked. Hu Tianlai shook his head. "I'm afraid it won't work. There's no such precedent." Chu Li sighed. "Then we can only let go of this opportunity? Let the sect leader decide." Hu Tianlai said, "But Yuan Si, your brain is getting better. You're enlightened, aren't you?" Chu Li grinned. "I've been in the Grandmaster's realm for too long, and I've been affected by the surroundings. The people in the Grandmaster's realm are just like the people in the Profound Heart sect. They're all scheming." Hu Tianlai shook his head. "I'll be going then." Chu Li fist saluted. After Hu Tianlai left, Chu Li remained silent. It seemed that it was still difficult to effect the cooperation with the Azura. Even Hu Tianlai could not interfere. He did not know the secret behind it, but he had to find out more about it before he could find a way to oppose it. Then, he would find out which sects were colluding with the Azura and think of a way to get rid of it. He stood up and waved the unnamed sword. He felt the weight of the sword and then practiced the coalescence sword technique. The power of the coalescence sword technique lay in its ingenuity. Every time it drew the inner energy from the whole body, it was similar to the supreme diamond scripture. It was the most suitable martial art for him. Other people could only use one technique, but he could use it continuously and fully utilize his advantage. The Flying Heaven sect was very quiet at the moment. It was a suitable time for cultivation. He began to cultivate the soul-devouring technique and understood the heart technique behind the cloud slashing power. There were a total of 3 levels of the heart technique, and he cultivated them one by one. He had accumulated enough cloud slashing power, so he naturally mastered the 7th level. However, he stopped when he was trying to break through to the 8th level. His inner energy could not continue, and no matter how profound his cultivation level was, it could not withstand its complicated route. The 7th level of the heart technique made his inner energy even purer. It had truly reached the realm of liquid-like inner energy. When it flowed in his body, it sounded like the sound of a river. It was very strange, and the power of his inner energy had increased greatly. It was only 1 level, but its power had increased a lot. Unfortunately, the 8th level of the heart technique was too complicated. He needed to circulate it a few times in one breath. When others encountered this level of heart technique, they would usually not be able to withstand it due to lack of energy. However, he did not have enough inner energy. Relying on the life and death scripture to replenish his inner energy was no longer enough. It consumed his inner energy too quickly. This required him to slowly purify his inner energy. Only when it was pure enough could he support the circulation of the 8th level of the heart technique. He began to cultivate. He did not know how much time had passed. After an unknown amount of time, there was a soft knock on the door. A clear voice was heard from outside. "Senior Wu, there's a lady outside looking for you. Please come in." Chu Li sat on the bed and opened his eyes. "Yes." The young disciple outside responded and left quietly. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and quickly saw Qin Mengyun standing at the foot of the mountain. She was dressed in a light green gown, and her face was covered by a green veil. Only her clear eyes could be seen. She was quietly looking around with an anxious expression. Chu Li suddenly flashed and appeared in front of her. "Big Brother Wu," Qin Mengyun hurriedly said, "I have something important to say." Chu Li pulled her sleeve and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in his own courtyard. Qin Mengyun did not wait for Chu Li to let go of her hand. She hurriedly said, "Big Brother Wu, I heard that Mystery Heart Sect is preparing to attack one of your hidden peaks." Chu Li said, "The hidden peaks?" Qin Mengyun nodded lightly. "It's your hidden peaks." If someone else had said this, he would have doubted it. The hidden peaks were the retreat route left by the Flying Heaven sect. Moreover, there was more than one hidden peak. Perhaps only the sect leader and the elders knew how many there were. Chapter 2108. Qin Mengyun came in a hurry. She would not be joking with him, so it must be true. He did not ask how she got the information, but he had a better understanding of the dancing butterfly sex intelligence. He pondered and asked, "Have they made their move?" "They'll probably make their move soon," Qin Mingyun said. "I'll inform you as soon as I receive the news, lest the hidden peaks are defenseless and Mystery Heart sect takes advantage of it." Chu Li nodded. "Thank you." Qin Mingyun took off her veil and revealed her beautiful face. She shook her head. "It's nothing. If I don't tell you about this, I'll be ashamed." Chu Li said, "I'll report to the sect leader personally. Follow me to see him." Qin Mingyun shook her head. "I'll only tell you, Big Brother Wu. I won't see your sect leader. I'll take my leave first." Chu Li hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Miss Qin, can you help me find out which sects are working with Azura and why? I think there are many secrets hidden in this." Azura. Qin Mingyun frowned. She did not have a good impression of Azura and felt an inexplicable hostility toward them. Chu Li said, "It's best not to let anyone know and investigate secretly." "Okay, I'll keep an eye on it." Qin Mingyun nodded. "I'll go now." Chu Li gave her a fist salute. Qin Mingyun put on her veil. Chu Li pulled her sleeve and disappeared from the courtyard. The next moment, he appeared in the forest at the foot of the mountain. Qin Mingyun glanced at him with her bright eyes before she nodded and disappeared. Chu Li looked at the direction where she disappeared and sighed. There was still a trace of her fragrance in the air. He disappeared again and soon appeared outside the Basilica of the Flying Heaven sect. He gave a fist salute to the two young men standing outside the basilica. "I'd like to see the sect leader. Come in." Zhao Lingfeng's voice came from inside the basilica. Chu Li walked up the steps and entered the basilica. He gave a fist salute to Zhao Lingfeng, who was sitting in front of the table. "Sect leader, I've received news that Mystery Heart sect is preparing to attack our hidden peaks." Zhao Lingfeng was dressed in a green robe. His back was straight, and he looked strong. He was calmly flipping through the dossiers. When he looked up at Chu Li, his bright eyes seemed to be able to see through his heart. "The Hermit Peaks?" Zhao Lingfeng smiled. "They can't possibly know where the Hermit Peaks are." Chu Li said, "The Profound Heart sect is currently making preparations. It's obvious that they know of a certain place." "Sect leader, do you think that they're deliberately mystifying us so that we can take action to lure them there?" Zhao Lingfeng smiled and said, "It is impossible for them to know where the Hermit Peaks are. Only the elders and I know. Those elders almost never left the sect, so there was no chance for the Profound Heart sect to pry the location of the Hermit Peaks from their mouths. Therefore, the Profound Heart sect must be deliberately mystifying things. The truth was fake, and the fake was real." Chu Li said, "I'm just afraid that they'll really find it." "That's fine." Zhao Lingfeng said, "The Hermit Peak's defensive formation is not something that they can break. It is already foolproof. Unless they bring all the elders with them, they will only have a glimmer of hope." Chu Li nodded slowly. Since Zhao Lingfeng said so, there was nothing he could do about it. After all, he could not force Zhao Lingfeng to make a move. Furthermore, the Profound Heart sect was really willing to let them lead the way. Stopping them with silence was also an option. Of course, if it were him, he would not have done so. "Yuan Si, this time you've managed to stop the Profound Heart sect and the Heavenly Wind sect from joining hands. You've done a great service, and it's extremely rare." Zhao Lingfeng smiled as he looked at him. "The sect will reward you handsomely." Chu Li shook his head and said, "Sect leader, I already have the flying demon technique, but I haven't mastered it yet. I don't really need any spirit pills or medicine." Zhao Lingfeng said, "The flying demon technique is not that easy to cultivate. Otherwise, I would personally guide you in cultivating it for a month." "Thank you, sect leader." Chu Li was overjoyed. Zhao Lingfeng said, "You'll have to wait for a while." Chu Li quickly nodded. Zhao Lingfeng's cultivation level was profound. Chu Li felt a huge pressure when he was in front of him. Even if he displayed his original cultivation level, he was still far from Zhao Lingfeng's. There must be other antique studies that he did not know about. It was probably not the flying demon technique, but his current level was not high enough to cultivate it. If he could get Zhao Lingfeng's personal guidance, not only would he gain martial arts, but he would also gain prestige. With Zhao Lingfeng's guidance, he would become Zhao Lingfeng's direct disciple. Everyone would have a feeling that he would become the sect leader in the future, as long as nothing happened to him. This kind of power would be of great help to him in the future, and there would be less resistance. Zhao Lingfeng said, "All right, then you can go. Be careful and don't go out, or else you'll be ambushed by the Profound Heart sect." Chuli nodded and Fizz saluted. Chuli immersed himself in cultivating the cloud, slashing power, and the coalescence sword technique. Once again, he lost track of time. After cultivating the cloud, slashing power technique, he once again entered a state of rapid advancement. His cultivation level increased greatly. Even though it did not double, it still increased by 30%. To him now, 30% was already an astonishing improvement. At noon, he was cultivating the coalescence sword technique in the courtyard when Hu Tianlai came again. Chuli sheathed the unnamed sword and Fizz saluted. Hu Tianlai's face was gloomy. He sat by the stone table and sighed. "Yuan Si, you still don't know?" Chuli asked, "What is it?" "The Hermit Peaks have been breached," Hu Tianlai said. "We lost 23 disciples." Chuli frowned. "How is that possible?" Hu Tianlai scoffed. "A disciple of the Profound Heart sect sneaked in. Damn it, I must avenge him." Chuli said, "That's impossible. The Hermit Peaks should have strict checks. How could a disciple of the Profound Heart sect sneak in?" "There's a traitor," Hu Tianlai said coldly. "There's a traitor among our young disciples. It's impossible to guard against it." The elders of the Hermit Peaks were too careless and thought they were foolproof. Chuli fell silent. The truth was fake, and the fake was real. This time, the Profound Heart sect was fake. The sect leader had miscalculated. Hu Tianlai said, "You got the news from the Dancing Butterfly sect, right?" Chuli said, "It's hard to distinguish the authenticity of this news. They might have deliberately released it. It's impossible to guard against it." Hu Tianlai sighed. "This time, we have no choice but to fight. Yuan Si, you should leave." Chuli was startled. "Masters Junior, what do you mean? It's not good to stay in a dangerous place. You should go to the Grandmaster's boundary," Hu Tianlai said. Chuli laughed. "How can I run away in the face of danger? This is the time to work together to fight against outsiders." "Masters Junior, you don't have to say any more," Hu Tianlai said. "He Ming is dead. If something happens to you, there's no hope for your generation of disciples. The sect leader doesn't want to have no successors. You're our seed." Chuli shook his head. "If I'm gone, younger disciples will emerge. It's impossible for me to leave now." "Masters Junior, you don't have to say any more." "You?" Hu Tianlai shook his head. "You're so silly." Chuli smiled. "It's not a good thing to be too smart." "All right, I'll convey your message to the sect leader." Hu Tianlai nodded slowly. "Don't go out for a while. It's too chaotic." Chuli said, "Are we going to take revenge?" Hu Tianlai nodded slowly. Chuli said, "I'll go with you." Chapter 2109. After sending Hu Tianlai off, Chuli paced around the courtyard with his hands behind his back. Right now, the Flying Heaven sect was in a situation where they had no choice but to fight. It seemed like the Profound Heart sect was confident that they would win. They had even repaired their relationship with the Heavenly Wind sect and continued to work together. He thought about it and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared at the foot of the Sword Demon sect's mountain. Under the bright sunlight, the Sword Demon sect's mountain peak seemed to block out the sun, exuding a sinister feeling. Chuli took out the small sword and channeled his energy into it. Suddenly, a strange aura appeared and then disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. Two men in green robes came out from the forest. They held their swords and looked at Chu Li with vigilant expressions. Just as they were about to speak, Murong Cho suddenly appeared in the air. When he saw that it was Chu Li, he laughed and said, "I knew it. Who would come looking for me? Come in." Chu Li appeared by his side and disappeared together with his sleeve. The next moment, they appeared in Murong Chao's courtyard. Chu Li took a look at his small courtyard. The rockery, the secluded forest, and the small stream were still elegant and pleasant. Murong Cho was dressed in a tight-fitting white training outfit and appeared to be full of heroic spirit. He chuckled as he looked at Chu Li. I heard that your Flying Heaven faction has suffered a huge setback and your hermit peaks have been breached? Profound Heart sect. Chu Li scoffed. Murong Cho shook his head and said, for such a thing to happen, I really don't know what to say. These guys from the Profound Heart sect are too much. Chu Li nodded. Murong Cho said, you will definitely come back for revenge, right? Of course. Chu Li said, everyone's here to watch the show, right? Yes. Murong Cho nodded his head and sighed. The Profound Heart sect is indeed unpopular, but they are also quite scary. They are everywhere, and they actually did such a thing. Your Flying Heaven sect was too careless. He did not think that the Flying Heaven sect was incompetent. Even the Sword Demon sect would not be able to do anything about it. It was simply impossible to guard against it. Chu Li said, now, to break the alliance between the Profound Heart sect and the Heavenly Wind sect, Brother Murong, you have to help me. How? Murong Cho asked without hesitation. Chu Li said, I want to kill some people from the Profound Heart sect. I can't do it alone. Killing people from the Profound Heart sect. Good. Murong Cho straightforwardly replied, I like to kill people from the Profound Heart sect the most. I was just thinking about this matter. You could be considered as timely rain. Chu Li felt grateful and smiled. Your faction leader won't agree to it, right? Killing people from Profound Heart sect, now, is no different from supporting our Flying Heaven sect. So what? Murong Cho snorted. What would the Profound Heart sect dare to say? Chu Li shook his head and could not help but laugh. Good, as expected of the Sword Demon sect. He understood Murong Cho's meaning. The Sword Demon sect did not care what the Profound Heart sect thought. If they wanted to help the Soaring Heaven sect, they would help. If they didn't want to help, they would not. The Sword Demon sect's thoughts were just that, overbearing. Let's go. Where are we going to kill? Murong Cho urged. I can't wait any longer. Chu Li said, then let's go to the outskirts of Tianfeng's sect. This is powerful. Murong Cho laughed loudly and said, you still have guts, not bad, not bad. When he thought about how exciting it was, his whole body became excited, and his eyes shone brightly. Chu Li asked, is there anything I need to prepare? We're risking our lives if we go, and we might even lose our lives. Wait a minute. Murong Cho turned around and entered the house. He changed into a long yellow robe and looked very noble. He smiled and said, let's go. The two suddenly disappeared, and the next moment, they appeared in a forest at the foot of the mountain of Tianfeng's sect. Chu Li said, last time, I ambushed 2 groups of people from the Profound Heart sect here. Why don't we go directly to the Profound Heart sect and make our move? Murong Cho said, it'll be easier. Chu Li shook his head. Killing the disciples of the Profound Heart sect and destroying the alliance with the Tianfeng sect is really not feasible. They will definitely see through it. Murong Cho said, every one of them is as smart as a ghost. Chu Li said, the Profound Heart sect is very suspicious, but it might not be useless. That's true. Murong Cho thought about it and nodded. I just don't know when there will be disciples from the Profound Heart sect. Chu Li suddenly waved his hand and interrupted him. Murong Cho looked at him doubtfully. Chu Li shook his head and put on a listening expression. Murong Cho looked at Chu Li and realized that Chu Li's cultivation level had increased greatly. He was already 1 level higher than him. In just half a month, this guy was really a genius in martial arts. After a while, the 3 elders lightly fluttered out of the Tianfeng sect and gradually went far away. Chu Li leaped onto the top of a towering ancient tree and looked down. Murong Cho did the same and saw the 3 elders 2 miles away. Although they were just small black dots, they did not escape his eyes. He turned his head to look at Chu Li and was surprised at Chu Li's sensitivity. Suddenly, he felt unconvinced. He had to hurry up and cultivate as well. He could not fall behind, or else how would he be able to face others? Just as he was about to speak, Chu Li waved his hand and interrupted him again. After a while, Murong Cho finally could not take it anymore. Not going after them? Chu Li said, to see if there's an ambush. Is there? Murong Cho scoffed. Chu Li nodded. There is. Murong Cho was surprised. Where is it? You saw it? Chu Li pointed in the direction of the north and slowly said, There's a group of people lying in ambush over there. They're here to receive the 3 of them. There should be 10 of them. Actually, if you want to ambush them, you just need to bring something like this. As he said this, he took out the small sword that Murong Cho gave him. Murong Cho scoffed. Do you think they have this kind of treasure? This is not an ordinary token. Not everyone has it. As a core disciple of the Sword Demon sect, only the rising stars would have this kind of token. In his generation of disciples, he was the only one who had it. The other disciples did not have it. The Profound Heart sect could not compare to the Sword Demon sect. Moreover, if the disciples of the Profound Heart sect really had this kind of treasure, the core disciples would not do something as trivial as delivering a letter. Chu Li said, There's always a way. Murong Cho scoffed. Then shall we go attack the people lying in ambush? Chu Li thought for a while. Let's split up. I'll go kill those 3 fellas. Once they call for help, you'll appear and block those 10 fellas. Can you block them? Murong Cho gritted his teeth. No problem. Chu Li said, Don't force yourself. If you can't block them, retreat. We'll work together to take care of them. Don't worry, leave it to me, Murong Cho said. Chu Li's face began to change, elongating and broadening. His eyebrows became thicker, his nose became sharper, and his mouth became bigger. His body also changed, growing taller and burly. In just a short while, he had become another person. Murong Cho looked at Chu Li and frowned. Peng Chunghua. Chu Li smiled. Are there any flaws? Murong Cho looked at him and slowly nodded. There really are no flaws. Looks like you'll be able to defeat Peng Chunghua. Chu Li sneered. I'll never forget. Became enemies? Murong Cho laughed. This fella is also a treacherous person. I can't wait to kill him. Chu Li slowly nodded. I almost died in his hands. The next time I meet him, I'll definitely kill him. Then let's see who kills him first, Murong Cho said. Chu Li nodded and suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, he appeared far away and shouted at the 3 elders of the Profound Heart sect. Seniors, please wait. The 3 elders were on high alert to prevent Chu Li from appearing again. Chapter 2110. The 3 of them turned around and stared at Chu Li coldly. Chu Li smiled helplessly. Seniors, Master wants to see you. Who? One of the elders scoffed. The 3 elders all looked dignified and righteous. They did not have the sly aura of the Profound Heart sect. 6 pairs of eyes stared at Chu Li, ready to attack at any time. They were obviously on guard. Chu Li said, I'm Peng Chunghua. I was ordered by Master to chase you back. He said there's been a change in the situation and we need to discuss it again. What's the matter? The elder in the center had a golden complexion as if he was covered with gold powder. If not for his bright eyes, one would think that he did not have long to live. However, his body was full of vigor. His complexion was not bad. He was born this way, or it was caused by cultivation. Chu Li shook his head. I don't know. Master only said that, and urged me to summon you back. He didn't approach them, but looked at them warily. In this way, the 3 of them relaxed their guard. If he was really an enemy, they should think of a way to approach him now. Moreover, they did not have any warning signs. It was obvious that Peng Chunghua did not have any killing intent. Moreover, they had actually seen Peng Chunghua before and recognized him. Chu Li turned around and walked back. Since I've notified you, I'll complete my mission. Farewell. All right. The 3 of them followed him back. Chu Li's speed was very fast. The 3 of them quickened their pace and surrounded Chu Li. They formed a triangular formation so that they could attack him together if they made a move. No matter what, they did not let down their guard. Even if Peng Chunghua was fine, there was no harm in being careful. Chu Li's speed increased. As he neared the peak, the unnamed sword on his waist suddenly slashed out. The light of the sword silently slashed an elder's neck. This was the coalescence sword technique. All the energy in one's body was concentrated in this sword. What was even more strange was that there was no killing intent. It was completely contained in the sword. It was silent and did not give the opponent any warning. Chu Li did not expect the coalescent sword technique to be so powerful. He thought that it would be difficult and would take some effort. After all, it was not the Sky Killer sword. He did not stare blankly and took the opportunity to swing the second sword. Once the life and death scripture was activated, the spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth surged into his body as if it did not care for his life. The spiritual energy rapidly circulated along the body movements of the Cloud, slashing Power's 7th level. In the blink of an eye, the spiritual energy was completely replenished. This was different from cultivating the 8th level of the heart technique. When cultivating the 8th level of the mental cultivation method, one would need the pure inner energy of the 7th level. However, when cultivating the 8th level, one would not be able to circulate the 7th level of the mental cultivation method. Therefore, after the life and death scripture transported spiritual energy in, it would not be able to convert it into inner energy that was as pure as water, and thus, it would not be able to circulate the 8th level of the mental cultivation method. Chu Li suddenly thought of a way to cultivate to the 8th level, which was to use his black tortoise shield. Unfortunately, he had left the black tortoise shield in the beyond heavenly realm and did not bring it along with him to avoid giving himself away. When the second slash came down, the two elders who were still alive waved their palms at the same time. Their faces were extremely gloomy. They did not expect that they would not be able to defend against Chu Li's attack despite putting up so many defenses, and Brother Zhao had died. They were extremely resentful towards Chu Li, and their killing intent was boiling. Chi. Both of their palms were pierced by the tip of the sword, which then pierced one of their arms. Relying on their palms to block, the two of them retreated to avoid the tip of the sword. Then, they kicked fiercely, causing the sand and stones to whiz as they flew towards Chu Li. Their bodies retreated with the momentum, and they had already crushed the tokens in their hands. They did not dare to let out a long whistle to avoid alerting the Tianfeng sect. They already suspected that the Tianfeng sect was the culprit. If they let out a long whistle, the Tianfeng sect would most likely turn against them completely, and they might even kill their own senior brothers. Their plan was to delay Chu Li's attack. Once their senior brothers arrived, they would surround and kill him. No matter how strong this person was, he would definitely die. As long as they killed him, they would know if he was the real Peng Changhua. They desperately used their light body technique to retreat, but they did not expect Chu Li to suddenly disappear and appear behind them in the next moment. His long sword had already cut off one of the elders' heads. The other elder was just alerted when he saw his comrade's head falling down. He immediately knew that he would not be able to wait for his fellow disciples to come to his aid. His face darkened, and he immediately performed the heavenly demonic disintegration technique. Bang! With a loud explosion, the surrounding area was instantly turned into a cloud of blood mist. Everything within the mist was razed to the ground. Plants disappeared, and a layer of soil was shaved off, leaving the entire area bare. Chu Li had already appeared 20 meters away. He shook his head and suddenly disappeared. He was pleasantly surprised by the coalescence sword technique. This way, he could rely on this technique to run amok in the heavenly demonic realm. He no longer needed to hide the strength of his sword technique, and he could even use the heaven-murdering tactics at the crucial moment. The next moment, he appeared beside Moroncho. He watched as Moroncho used the imperial sword to fly around everyone. His sword was like lightning, and his body and sword were one. He was truly as fast as lightning, and it was impossible to defend against. 2 elders had already fallen, and there were only 8 left. They stood back to back and did not dare to surround and attack Moroncho. They could only defend. If they could really be surrounded and attacked, the imperial sword would not be called the imperial sword, and the sword demon sect would not be so overbearing and arrogant. When they saw Chu Li appear, they immediately rushed towards him. Chu Li also rushed towards them, and in an instant, they surrounded Chu Li. At the same time, they used the heavenly demonic universe lock, so that Chu Li could not escape and could only use light body technique. They had already used the heavenly demonic universe lock on Murong Cho, but unfortunately, Murong Chao's imperial sword was not afraid of this. He did not need to use void diversion. With the speed of the imperial sword, he was like lightning and smoke, and it was impossible to defend against. He forced them to be unable to surround and kill him, and could only defend. Chu Li waved Wei Ming's sword, and used the coalescence sword technique. Suddenly, the sword technique lit up, as if a lake had appeared in front of everyone. An elder's head flew up, and, at the same time, Chu Li also flew out. The palm energy of the 8 people gathered together and split into 2 directions. 4 attacked Murong Cho, who was flying over on his sword, and the other 4 attacked Chu Li. Chu Li took a solid hit, but he also killed 1 person. He spat out a blood arrow in the air, and then turned his body and dived towards the 7 people again. Murong Cho also rushed over on his sword, and only 3 people's palm energy faced Chu Li. Chu Li was like a fish swimming against the palm energy. The flying demon technique was the most powerful in such a situation, and it could go against the force. The light of the sword flashed, and he once again swung his sword to kill another person. He was immediately sent flying and spat out another arrow of blood in the air. Murong Chao's sword had already arrived and crashed into the palm energy of the 4 people. The tip of the sword made a chi-chi sound, as if it had cut through iron and stone, and finally pierced into 1 person's chest. He was also sent flying and met with Chu Li in the air. Chu Li activated the flying demon technique and had already returned. He held the sword in his right hand, and his left palm hit the back of the man. The 2 of them shot towards the remaining 5 people at the same time. Although he was injured, he had killed 3 people at once, and the threat was greatly reduced. Chu Li's cultivation level had greatly increased, so even though he was injured, he was still able to deal with them with ease. Murong Cho saw how easily Chu Li killed the 2 old men from the Mystic Heart sect, and he even used the coalescence sword technique. He was immediately unconvinced and secretly competed to kill more people. The light of the sword suddenly increased, and its speed suddenly increased. It surpassed Chu Li and shot into the palm energy of the 5 people. Chi-chi, with a sharp whistle, the tip of the sword broke through the palm energy like a hot knife cutting through butter. It broke through the palm energy without any hindrance and stabbed 1 person. He did not care about the 2 palm energy that landed on his body, and the long sword once again stabbed towards another person. Another 2 palm energy shot towards Chu Li, preventing him from approaching, but they could not stop Chu Li. Under the coalescence sword technique, the light of the unknown sword increased again and turned into a clear light and killed another person. At this time, Murong Cho killed another person, and the corner of his mouth was already stained with blood. Chu Li suddenly shouted, "Retreat!" Murong Cho heard this and knew that something was wrong. He wanted to use his sword to retreat, but it was already too late. Chapter 2111. Bang! With a muffled sound, the red mist enveloped Murong Cho. He was unable to avoid it, and was already enveloped by the red mist. Chu Li was also unable to avoid it. Initially, he wanted to grab Murong Cho and disappear, but he did not expect these guys to be so decisive. Without waiting for him to grab Murong Cho, they had already performed the sky demonic disintegration technique. Previously, he looked injured and kept vomiting blood, but in fact, it was just for show. Because he had the demonic spirit devouring technique, the profound heart sect elder's palm energy was directly devoured by him, and they posed no threat to him. However, this time, the sky demon disintegration technique had injured him once again. Relying on his much purer inner force, he desperately suppressed it and was in a stalemate. He did not continue to heavily injure him. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture had already been activated. This time, he couldn't hide it from Murong Cho anymore. He immediately activated the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, and an invisible force slowly appeared from the distant void. He suddenly had a feeling that this strange force came from the reincarnation pagoda in the Beyond Heavens realm. Previously, when he was touched by Qin Mingyun, he did not dare to use the power of the chakra pagoda for fear of giving himself away. Now, however, he was not worried. After knowing the origin of the cloud slashing power, it was no different from wearing a protective shield around his body. He turned his head to look at Murong Cho. Murong Cho's face looked like it had been smeared with gold powder. His eyes were blurred, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. He had already suffered a serious injury. Even the long sword in his right hand had lost its luster, as if the blade had been smeared with a layer of ash. Chu Li frowned. He could tell that something was wrong. Although the heavenly demonic power greatly strengthened the body, and the bodies of those who cultivated the heavenly demonic power were all tyrannical, far surpassing that of a celestial being, it was still not as strong as his body. He had experienced the tempering of several kinds of mystical power and the strengthening of the spirit pills. He hurriedly channeled his energy and injected a wisp of aura to probe the situation. Suddenly, a strange power surged over, wanting to devour his inner force. Chu Li frowned. Murong Cho's injuries were extremely severe. His internal organs were almost shattered, and his vitality was dim and weak. He was almost at his last gasp, and it felt like he was about to breathe his last. The demonic body dissolution technique was indeed powerful. If not for him blocking in front of him, Murong Cho would have already lost his life. Murong Cho let out a light breath and said in a low voice, "I have spirit pills." Chu Li took out 3 small jade bottles from his pocket and shook them in front of him. "The one in the middle," Murong Cho said with difficulty. Chu Li opened the small jade bottle in the middle, poured out a pill, and stuffed it into Murong Cho's mouth. He shook his head and said, "You're too stupid. Why didn't you run away when you saw that the situation was not looking good? Who knew that they would be so vicious?" Murong Cho said weakly. Although his breath was weak and his words were weak, he did not stutter. His mind was still clear, but he felt that his internal organs were injured. Even if he could keep his life, he would not be able to keep his martial arts. Chu Li said, "Don't worry, I suffered from this the last time as well. Now that I've learned my lesson, I won't be entangled again. Your spirit pill won't work, I'll do it." As he spoke, he put Murong Cho down. The surroundings were empty, clean, and tidy. The two of them sat on the ground and crossed their legs. Chu Li placed his right palm on Murong Cho's back and began to circulate the cloud slashing power. He was prepared to lure the aura of the sky demonic disintegration technique over. If he did not let Murong Cho consume the spirit pill, Murong Cho would not give up and would not forget about the spirit pill. At this moment, Murong Cho had completely given up. After the pill entered his internal organs, it was immediately expelled by an invisible force. It did not have any effect at all. He was immediately disheartened. He knew that his life was about to end. He was indeed a little unwilling. After cultivating such a top-notch swordsmanship, he still could not dominate the world. He could not indulge in the world, drink good wine, look for beauties, and kill strong enemies. How could he just die like this? Chu Li said behind him, "Don't worry, we won't die." Murong Cho said, "Elder Wu, we've really failed this time. We've underestimated the profound heart sect." Chu Li said, "We won't fail. We're still alive. We're alive now, but we'll die later." Murong Cho shook his head and said, "It's a pity for you. Your swordsmanship is so strong, even stronger than mine, but you can't cultivate the sword demon sect swordsmanship. It's really a pity." Chu Li smiled and said, "My coalescent sword technique is quite good. The coalescent sword technique is nothing." Murong Cho scoffed and said, "Compared to my Imperial Sky Sword, and Imperial Sky Sword, it's far inferior. It's a pity that you can't learn them. But it's not bad for us to be reincarnated together. We won't be lonely." He saw Chu Li block for him just now. Otherwise, his life would have been over. Even if Wu Yuanxi had all kinds of shortcomings and even had ulterior motives for befriending him, for the sword demon sect swordsmanship, this kind of friend was worth making. Chu Li said, "Pull yourself together, we won't die." As he spoke, he slowly activated the cloud slashing power. After it entered Murong Chao's body, a strange force suddenly surged over and wanted to devour the cloud slashing power. But the cloud slashing power began to devour them instead. The power of the cloud slashing power now was even more shocking. Although it still could not suppress the power of the heavenly demonic dismantling technique, it could barely withstand it. He slowly retreated while more and more power of the heavenly demonic dismantling technique surged over and wanted to devour the inner energy of the cloud slashing power. Chu Li kept retreating, luring them to slowly retreat out of Murong Chao's internal organs. When Chu Li withdrew the inner energy of the cloud slashing power into his palm, it also surged over. Thus, it was absorbed by the heavenly demonic spirit devouring technique and turned into a trace of power in the heavenly demonic orb, disappearing. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief and smiled. Murong Cho suddenly spat out a mouthful of black blood. His body instantly relaxed, and his inner energy could circulate again. He hurriedly channeled and began to heal his injuries. Chu Li took out a bottle of pills and stuffed one into Murong Chao's mouth. "You got your little life back." Murong Cho did not care about talking to him and began channeling to prevent his cultivation from being damaged. After half an hour, Murong Cho slowly woke up. He looked at Chu Li, who was pacing with his hands behind his back, and sighed. "I owe you my life." Chu Li smiled. "What do you mean owe me? Can we still fight?" Murong Cho said hatefully, "As long as I don't die, I can fight." Chu Li looked at him from head to toe and shook his head. "You can't now." When he thought of this, he suddenly moved the vast spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Suddenly, the surroundings formed into strands of mist, as if it was drizzling. The spiritual energy that was so pure that it was almost tangible entered their pores. Murong Cho was shocked and looked at him in surprise. He was extremely sensitive and felt the changes in the spiritual energy. His internal organs were also rapidly healing, and his inner energy was also recovering quickly. Originally, it would have taken 4 hours, but now it only took a moment. Chu Li said, "They're going to fight again." He had already seen the disciples of the Heavenly Wind sect moving out. The one leading them was his enemy, Peng Chenghua. He was not afraid of Murong Cho suspecting anything. With Murong Chao's personality, even if he had doubts, he would not betray him and would pretend that he did not know anything. Murong Cho scoffed. "These people from the profound heart sect, I've underestimated them." Chapter 21:12. Chu Li shook his head. His figure began to change. In the blink of an eye, he became an old man. His face was as pale as gold paper. He was one of the 3 elders from the Tianfeng sect. His body was burly and his eyes were shining. "What are you?" Murong Cho looked at him in surprise. Chu Li said, "Brother Murong, hide at the side. I will deal with them." "Are you not going to kill the people from the Tianfeng sect?" Murong Cho asked. Chu Li shook his head. "Killing them is too boring." "All right, I'll listen to you," Murong Cho said. He now had full trust in Chu Li. He retreated and hid in the forest. The spiritual energy around him was thin. It was a huge difference compared to the spiritual energy before. It was as if he came out of the water. He felt uncomfortable, but he did not rush out. The force around him was completely integrated into his sword. The sword was already in its scabbard. His aura did not dissipate at all. He became one with the forest around him. Chu Li turned into an old man and sat cross-legged on the ground. His face was golden, but his eyes quickly dimmed. There was no need to wipe the blood at the corner of his mouth. He looked like he was seriously injured. After a while, the sound of clothes fluttering could be heard. The burly Peng Chenghua and the 3 elders floated in front of Chu Li. Chu Li struggled to open his eyes. His body was tense. He wanted to stand up, but he could not. He only stared at them with a vigilant look. He did not say a word. "Senior Meng?" Peng Chenghua was surprised. "You are." Chu Li frowned and looked at him. "You are?" "I am Peng Chenghua." Peng Chenghua closed fist saluted. I am a disciple of the Tianfeng sect. When Senior Meng and the sect leader were discussing, I was also listening to orders. I remember now. Chu Li acted as if he had a sudden realization. He took a deep breath and said slowly, I am old and my brain is not good enough. I cannot recognize you. Senior Meng, you? Peng Chenghua frowned. Did you meet an enemy? Sigh. Chu Li shook his head bitterly. I failed miserably in an easy task. I've failed again. Did someone ambush Senior Meng? Peng Chenghua asked. He could feel the sharp aura around him, and the baleful aura was astonishing. It was obvious that there had been a life and death battle, and it was a battle between top-notch experts. Not to mention the appearance of the surrounding terrain, just this strange aura made him apprehensive. If it had been him, he might not have been able to escape unscathed. It was obvious that the ambushers' martial arts were also very shocking. A group of people suddenly came out to ambush us. They almost succeeded. Chu Li said slowly, Senior brother and the others used the heavenly demonic disintegration technique to give me a chance to live. How many people? Peng Chenghua hurriedly asked. Sigh, there are 6 of them. Chu Li shook his head. I really didn't expect them to be. Peng Chenghua's expression changed slightly. Which sex expert is he from? It seems to be from your Tianfeng sect. Chu Li frowned. Could it be that your Tianfeng sect really has a grudge against our profound heart sect? Impossible. Peng Chenghua hurriedly said. Chu Li said, I don't think it's possible either. It's a shame that the master I saw was from the Tianfeng sect. Looks like there's no hope for our cooperation. Peng Chenghua said, Senior Meng, this must be a plan to frame us. The seniors from the Profound Heart sect can see it. If someone else said it was the Tianfeng sect, I would also be suspicious and think of the trap. Chu Li slowly said, but I saw it with my own eyes. It was indeed the antique study of your Tianfeng sect. Outsiders can't learn it. Peng Chenghua frowned and said, could it be that someone impersonated us? Chu Li said, to be able to impersonate your face, what about their martial arts? Other than your Tianfeng sect, who else knows Tianfeng palm? Moreover, these people's palm energy was rich and powerful. They are definitely at the level of an elder. Young Peng, you might not know the secret behind this. It's better not to talk for now. Senior Ming, do you want to go back to our sect to recuperate? Peng Chenghua asked. Chu Li shook his head. I don't dare to go back to your place in case I get killed. I have already sent a signal. There will be people coming in a while. Peng Chenghua frowned and did not say anything. He was also doubtful in his heart. If it was really a false accusation, it might not be too real. The martial arts of the Tianfeng sect were not leaked. Senior Ming would not be mistaken. Suddenly, a low whistle was heard. Then, a burly old man flew over. He stepped on the treetops and landed in front of Chu Li. He frowned and asked, Junior Ming, what happened to you? The burly old man's body was like a willow catkin. He silently floated down. He frowned and looked at Peng Chenghua and the others. He looked down at Chu Li and asked, who hurt you? Forget it, Senior Luo. Let's go back first. Chu Li shook his head. All right, let's go. The burly old man nodded. Senior Ming, Peng Chenghua hurriedly said. He was a little worried. Once they returned to the Profound Heart sect, they would be even more suspicious of the Tianfeng sect. It would be difficult for the two sects to continue working together. It seemed like the Profound Heart sect lost more than 2 masters this time. Chu Li sighed. Young Peng, we will not go back unless you want to kill us. Peng Chenghua's eyes flashed. He shook his head and smiled. Senior Ming, what are you thinking? Why will we kill them? Chu Li smiled and said, that's good. Goodbye. The burly old man helped Chu Li up. They flew up and disappeared in the blink of an eye. An old man behind him said, Young Peng, are we really going to let them go just like that? What else? Peng Chenghua said. If we let them go just like that, we won't be able to explain ourselves. The old man said, why don't we just go all the way and kill them all so that they won't spread rumors and deny this matter? It's too late. Peng Chenghua shook his head. Since he can call people over, he must have a way to spread the news. If we really kill him, our suspicions will be confirmed. There will be no turning back. That's true. The expressions of the 3 old men behind him changed slightly. They did not think of this. When they thought of this, They could not help but sigh. Young Peng was really meticulous. He was indeed a genius and a future sect leader. Chu Li and the burly old man suddenly disappeared and appeared at the foot of the Sword Demon sect. The burly old man had returned to his original appearance. It was Morong Cho. He chuckled. How is it? Chu Li's spirit was lifted. His previous dispiritedness disappeared. He chuckled. Great teamwork. He did not say much. Morong Cho already knew what to do. There were no flaws in their teamwork. Profound Heart sect had lost a master and was suspicious. The Heavenly Wind sect would also be suspicious and lack confidence. This time, it was almost enough to destroy the alliance between the two sections. If it really did not work, there was nothing they could do. Killing is not satisfying enough. If it's up to me, we should directly rush to Profound Heart sect and kill them. Morong Cho smacked his lips and shook his head. Chu Li smiled. Do you think Profound Heart sect is made of mud that we can do whatever we want? Why don't I call a few senior brothers to help? Morong Cho said. Can your flying heaven sect deal with Profound Heart sect? Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Forget it. Chapter 21:13. The two of them entered the Sword Demon sect and returned to Morong Cho's courtyard. Chu Li sighed and pretended to be helpless. What he had done was already his limit. Cascading clouds and cascading rain did his best to weaken the alliance between the two sections. He used Profound Heart sect suspicions to weaken their strength. Other than that, there wasn't much else he could do. He also didn't want to arouse too much suspicion. There was a limit to how capable he was. If he exceeded the limit, he would arouse suspicion. He had already earned the attention and rewards of the sect. His goal was not to end the sect war, but to take advantage of the opportunity to gain a high position, to be able to enter the core. Now that he could receive personal guidance from the sect leader, he had achieved his goal. You've already done well enough. Don't think that you can go against an entire sect. Morong Cho curled his lips and said, Even I don't dare to think that way. Chu Li nodded. The two of them sat at the stone table and drank tea. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps could be heard. A green-clothed disciple pushed open the door and entered. Brother Morong, there is a lady at the foot of the mountain who wants to see young Master Wu. Oh, Morong Cho looked up at Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. Invite her up. Yes. The green-robed disciple swiftly retreated. Morong Cho laughed and said, Miss, which miss? Chu Li said, I think I only recognize two ladies. Don't tell me it's Miss Qin. Morong Cho's expression slightly changed as he glared at him. Don't tell me there's something going on between you and Miss Qin. Don't bully your friend's wife. Chu Li laughed. Miss Qin is not your wife. Old Wu, you're too much. Morong Cho snorted and stared at him. But if you want to snatch Miss Qin from me, there's no way. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. A faint fragrance wafted into the courtyard. Qin Mingyun, who was dressed in a light green gown, arrived like a wisp of smoke. She sat down beside Chu Li. I've finally found you, Big Brother Wu. Chu Li smiled. Why are you looking for me so urgently? Is there something important? Qin Mingyun wore a light green veil that covered her beautiful face. Her watery eyes glanced at Morong Cho. Morong Cho snorted and said, Miss Qin, don't tell me you want me to withdraw. That's for the best, Qin Mingyun said. Chu Li smiled and said, Forget it, Brother Morong is not an outsider. Old Wu is still the one who understands. Morong Cho snorted and proudly raised his eyebrows at Qin Mingyun. Qin Mingyun said, Does Big Brother Wu know that your sect is attacking the Profound Heart sect? Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Have they started? They attacked the Profound Heart sect and fought for a while before retreating. This time, the Profound Heart sect suffered a great loss. Qin Mingyun praised. I never thought that your esteemed sect would have such ability to actually be able to break through the Profound Heart sect's great formation. It's that powerful? Morong Cho was surprised. It's impossible to break through the formation, right? It was almost impossible to break through the mountain guarding array. No matter which sect it was, the mountain guarding array was extremely powerful. And for a large sect like the Profound Heart sect, the mountain guarding array was even more powerful. Chu nodded in disbelief. Qin Mingyun said, "The Flying Heaven sect has an insider in the Profound Heart sect, and they worked together to open the Great Formation. Then, they entered the sect and caught the Profound Heart sect off guard, resulting in a huge battle." Chu shook his head and said, "Those who are good at swimming will drown." That's true. The Profound Heart sect has always been scheming and plotting against other sects, sending people to infiltrate. I never thought that there would be a spy in their own sect. Morong Cho laughed. How satisfying, but I've underestimated the Flying Heaven sect. Old Wu, it seems that these sects cannot be underestimated. Chuli nodded. This is really good news. Qin Mingyun's face was covered with a veil, and her smile could not be seen. Only her bright eyes were curved, and she was smiling. Morong Cho could not help but feel itchy. He quickly said, "Miss Qin, why are you wearing this thing? It's so uncomfortable to be so secretive." Qin Mingyun rolled her eyes at him. She knew that with Chuli around, he did not dare to be too presumptuous, so she took off the green veil, revealing her beautiful and moving face. She said softly, "There's another news. It's about the Azura." Chuli perked up. "Have you found out?" Qin Mingyun said, "In our heavenly demonic boundary, there are a total of 3 sects that are related to the Azura." Chuli was surprised. "Only 3 sects?" Qin Mingyun nodded. "The Flying Heaven sect is one. There's also the Profound Heart sect and the Great Dream sect." Chu said, "Why are you working with the Azura? These people are all ruthless. Working with them is tantamount to inviting a wolf into the house, and there will be endless trouble in the future. I think it's not that the 3 sect leaders can't see it, but they're like this just because of hatred. I don't believe it. There must be a mystery." Qin Mingyun frowned and said softly, "There's no need to say more about sect leader Huang of the Profound Heart sect. He's very calculative. And there's also sect leader Chung of the Great Dream sect. He's even more perceptive. Together with sect leader Zhao of your sect. This time, they've also made people look at them in a different light." Everyone was shocked. Chu Li said, "The Great Dream sect can see through the mysteries of the heavens. Could it be that there's something mysterious that requires them to work with the Azura? It can't be that the Grandmaster realm will invade, right?" He knew about the Great Dream sect. "Life is like a dream. Everyone is in a dream. Only I am awake." The Great Dream sect was similar to the Stargazing Pavilion and the Heaven-Shaking Pavilion. They were all sects that had the ability to see through the mysteries of the heavens. Chuli never thought that the 3 sects that had connections with the Azura included the Great Dream sect. Qin Mingyun said, "I'm afraid only the 3 sect leaders know the mystery. We don't know. But it's probably not because of hatred." Morong Cho laughed. "Elder Wu, why are you wasting your time? Just ask your sect leader directly." Chuli said, "The sect leader won't say, or else everyone will know." "That's true." Morong Cho said, "But why are you concerned about this? You really have the time to worry. No matter how strong the Azura is, it's impossible for them to invade the heavenly demonic realm. There's nothing to worry about." Chuli said, "We can't underestimate them. They're immortal. They're not afraid of death. How can we underestimate them? Who asked our heavenly demonic power to restrain their Azura power technique?" Morong Cho laughed. He did not take the Azura seriously at all. The Azura power technique was powerful, but unfortunately, it was restrained by the heavenly demonic power. The Azura power technique was like oil, while the heavenly demonic power was like fire. A spark could burn the oil and destroy it. Chu Li shook his head. Qin Mingyun said, "We won't be able to find out about this. Big Brother Wu, you'll have to ask around yourself." Chu Li smiled. "That's good enough. Thank you, Miss Qin." Morong Cho scoffed. "I didn't expect you two to be so close. Is there anything I don't know?" He felt bad seeing Chu Li and Qin Mingyun being so close. Qin Mingyun rolled her eyes at him, then said to Chu Li, "Big Brother Wu, I'll be going then." "Wait," Morong Cho hurriedly said. Qin Mingyun glared at him unkindly. Morong Cho quickly said, "Since Miss Qin is here, why don't you have a meal before you leave?" "No need." Qin Mingyun scoffed. then stood up and walked out, floating away like a cloud. Chuli took a step sideways and blocked in front of Murong Cho. "Brother Murong, forget it." Murong Cho widened his eyes and scoffed. "Elder Wu, you're too much." Chuli said, "You can't force the relationship between a man and a woman." Murong Cho scoffed. "It won't be that easy for you to snatch Miss Chin away." Chuli smiled. "I'll leave first. I'll see what's going on with the sect." Chapter 21:14. He returned to the Flying Heaven faction. It was evening and the sun was setting, illuminating the Flying Heaven faction beautifully. However, the Flying Heaven faction was still empty. There were not many people around. Only a few of the basilicas were still there. Chuli felt something different. The Flying Heaven faction did not seem cold and desolate because of the emptiness of the faction. Instead, it was filled with a high-spirited atmosphere that made one's blood boil. Chuli went straight to the dark hall and saw the hall leader, Hu Tianlai. Hu Tianlai's face was as pale as a sheet, and his aura was still weak. It was obvious that he was heavily injured, but he did not go back to recuperate. Instead, he was still reading the dossiers. Chuli fist saluted. "Masters Jr., you're injured? Damn it, I'm not dead yet. I'm so unlucky." Hu Tianlai said impatiently. "Did you hear the news?" Chuli nodded. "Did you win?" "Of course." Hu Tianlai smiled and chuckled. "At least it wasn't a waste of effort. We opened the sect protection formation and fought a great battle after we broke in. This time, we killed 100 of their young disciples." Chuli was surprised. "That many people?" "This time, it was enough to make them suffer." Hu Tianlai stroked his beard and laughed. "These people have been scheming all day long. I'll let them know what it's like to be schemed against." Chuli said, "Masters Jr., it shouldn't be that easy for spies to infiltrate the profound heart sect, right?" "Of course." Hu Tianlai nodded. "But I sent a disciple in 10 years ago. This young man has quite a good aptitude and is highly valued by the profound heart sect. He has been in isolated cultivation and did not reveal any flaws." Chuli frowned. "Since he's so valued by the profound heart sect, will he betray them?" "He's my adopted son." Hu Tianlai shook his head. "Now that he's back, you must take care of him in the future." Chuli nodded. "A person who has made such a great contribution is naturally worthy of respect. Don't just say it. His aptitude is not as good as yours, but he's still a smart young man. He might be able to take over my position in the future." Chuli smiled and shook his head. "Masters Jr., you're dreaming." The position of the palace master was not hereditary. No matter how powerful Hu Tianlai's godson was, he would not be able to take over the Dark Palace. The sect would not allow anyone to take over the Dark Palace. If 2 generations were to take over the Dark Palace, they would be in danger of not being able to escape. Hu Tianlai's adopted son would not be able to take over the Dark Hall, no matter how powerful he was. Hu Tianlai's adopted son would not be able to become Hall Master. He clapped his hands, and a black-clothed youth quietly walked in. "Hall Master, let Spirit Mountain come here," Hu Tianlai said. "Yes," the black-robed young man replied and retreated quietly. Chuli smiled at Hu Tianlai. Hu Tianlai said, "My adopted son is called Hu Lingshan. Meet him." Chuli pointed at the dossier on the table and said helplessly, "Masters Jr., there's no need to meet him now. It's better for you to recuperate from your injuries. Since the battle is over, why do you still have to fight so desperately?" Hu Tianlai sighed. "If we want to win, we must guard against profound heart sect's desperate actions." "That's true," Chuli nodded. "But no matter how anxious they are, they can't attack immediately, right? There are no traitors in our sect, right? Don't let them do the same to us." "You don't have to worry about that," said Hu Tianlai. "There aren't many young people in our sect. They're all old fellows who have passed the test. There won't be any problems." Chuli said, "The more it is like this, the more careful we have to be. Let me guard it." "The sect master is personally guarding it," Hu Tianlai said. "We've long been prepared for this." Chuli nodded in satisfaction. While the two of them were talking, the sound of footsteps rang out. A short young man floated over, as if he was riding the wind. He had a round face and large eyes. His gaze was exceptionally sharp and spirited, making it impossible for others to ignore him. Ling Shan, this is Wu Unc, your senior brother. Hu Tianlai waved his hand and said, in the future, you must learn well from Yuan Si. Whether it's martial arts or how to behave, you must learn well. Godfather. Hu Lingshan fist saluted and looked at Chu Li with a smile. Senior brother Wu, I've heard a lot about you. Chu Li smiled. Junior brother Hu, am I really that famous? Senior brother Wu is very famous in the Profound Heart sect. All the disciples want to kill you, Senior brother Wu. Unfortunately, the sect master did not allow them to do so. He said that they were no match for you, which made them even angrier. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. Looks like I'm quite famous. Hu Lingshan said. After that, everyone knew how powerful Senior brother Wu was. No one dared to look for you anymore. You've completely defeated the younger generation of the Profound Heart sect. Chu Li chuckled. You flatter me. However, there are many people who say that Senior brother Wu is so powerful because of Murong Cho from the Sword Demon sect. If it wasn't for Murong Cho, you would have been killed by the Profound Heart sect. Hu Lingshan smiled. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and looked at Hu Lingshan, who was smiling. That's true. If it wasn't for Brother Murong Cho, I would have been killed by the elders of the Profound Heart sect. All right. Hu Tianlai shook his head. You're so young, but you're so ambitious. He could tell that Hu Lingshan was unconvinced and shook his head secretly. Hu Lingshan was young and full of vigor. It was obvious that he got carried away by being favored by the Profound Heart sect. Chapter 21:15. Chu Li looked at Hu Lingshan and pondered. Hu Tianlai said, Yuan Si, don't stoop to his level. He's just spoiled. Chu Li shook his head. I think he's a smart person. He's not as impatient as he looks. Hu Tianlai smiled. It's a common problem when you're young. You used to be like that too. You've only calmed down after going through some hardships. Chu Li asked, Masters Jr., we've killed more than 100 of them this time. How many of us did we lose? 2. Hu Tianlai said, the rest suffered some minor injuries, but they're fine. Only the 2 senior brothers were unlucky and couldn't avoid the heavenly demonic disintegration technique. That's good. Chu Li nodded. Masters Jr., you haven't seen your godson for many years, right? Yes. Hu Tianlai sighed. I didn't contact him because I was afraid that he'd be exposed. Is there a problem? Hu Tianlai was very sensitive. He understood the meaning behind Chu Li's words. Chu Li frowned. Something doesn't feel right. Logically, I shouldn't say something like that. But Hu Tianlai nodded. This isn't a small matter. You should say it. But it's hard to find evidence for this. Chu Li sighed. If I'm wrong, I'll be a sinner. Hu Tianlai asked, do you really feel something's wrong? Chu Li slowly said, Masters Jr., it's hard to explain. I just feel that there's something wrong with your godson. It's hard to tell what's wrong. After all, you should know him the best. Initially, he could not see through Hu Lingshan's thoughts. After all, Hu Lingshan had a treasure on him that could prevent others from prying into his thoughts. However, Chu Li was very observant. Even if he could not see through Hu Lingshan's thoughts with the omniscient mirror, he could still see his every move and every slight change in his expression. It was because of this meticulous observation that he could deduce Hu Lingshan's thoughts from the outside to the inside. He felt that there was something wrong with Hu Lingshan. It was as if he had a huge secret that could not be known by others. Hu Tianlai shook his head and said, I have not seen him for 10 years. Now that I see him again, I do not feel like he is a stranger. He is still my godson. No one swapped him out. The heavenly demonic power could change one's appearance at any time, so it was inevitable that someone would try to impersonate him. Naturally, Chu Li would not let his guard down. He beat around the bush and asked about his childhood, as well as some details of their previous meetings. Chu Li said, 10 years, and it's at a young age. Masters Jr., it's better to be careful. Don't worry, I know, Hu Tianlai said slowly. He would not ignore Chu Li's warning and intuition. The reason he was able to safely escape from the Grandmaster realm back to the heavenly demonic realm was not because of his martial arts, but because of his keen intuition towards danger and survival. Although Wu Yuanxi's martial arts were strong, he was still a far cry from the top-notch masters of the Grandmaster boundary, such as the masters of Tai Hao Peak. The only reason he was able to escape was because of his intelligence, so he could not be underestimated. Chu Li gave a fist salute. "I'll take my leave then. Go." Hu Tianlai nodded with flagging interest. Chu Li left the basilica and went to his courtyard. When he arrived at the courtyard, he saw Hu Lingshan standing straight. Chu Li smiled helplessly and sighed. "Junior brother, Hu, do you really have to compete?" "Yes." Hu Lingshan said, "I know that senior brother Wu is looking down on me. Let's compete then. I want to see how strong the youth champion of the Flying Heaven sect is." Chu Li sighed and said, "All right then, come in." He pushed open the courtyard door and came to the center of the courtyard. He extended his hand and said, "Then let's have a round or two. Junior brother Hu, you can make the first move." Hu Lingshan scanned his surroundings and nodded. His gaze landed on Chu Li and gradually became sharp. It was as if his gaze was a solid object that pierced through Chu Li's eyes. He said in a deep voice, "I'm cultivating the martial arts of the Profound Heart sect." As he finished speaking, he lightly slapped his palm. It seemed slow, but it was incredibly fast. In an instant, it reached Chu Li's chest. Chu Li was very familiar with the martial arts of the Profound Heart sect. He had fought against the elders of the Profound Heart sect before. Although Hu Lingshan was strong, he was no match for the elders of the Profound Heart sect. With a twist of his claw, Hu Lingshan was instantly sent flying. Bang! Hu Lingshan crashed into the wall and hung there, unable to fall. Chu Li shook his head. "Junior brother Hu, it's better for you to cultivate." Hu Lingshan's face was red. His internal organs were boiling, and his blood was boiling. His inner energy was in a mess. He could not say a word, and his body was limp. He was angry and humiliated. He did not expect that he could not even take one hit. He thought that he could suppress him. Chu Li got up and entered the house, ignoring him. After a while, Hu Lingshan fell to the ground with a bang. He could not move. His internal organs were still boiling, and his inner energy was in a mess. He could not exert any strength and could only lie on the ground. After about 15 minutes, Hu Lingshan finally got up. His green shirt was stained with mud. After being soaked in sweat, it was stained with mud. He looked very embarrassed. He wanted to find a hole to hide in. He turned his head and glared at Chu Li's house, then turned and left. Chu Li shook his head and ignored him. Hu Lingshan was indeed a very smart person. It all depended on whether Hu Tianlai could find a loophole or not. Chu Li stood still in the basilica. The morning sun shone on the basilica, making it bright and gentle. Zhao Lingfeng was sitting in front of a desk and flipping through some files. He asked casually, "Are you ready to cultivate in isolation?" "Yes." "Thank you, sect leader," Chu Li said. "This is the reward you deserve. You don't have to thank me. Is there anything else you want to ask?" Zhao Lingfeng said gently. Chu Li said, "Sect leader, we have killed so many disciples from Profound Heart sect. They will definitely take revenge in desperation. What should we do?" "Just hide for a while. All disciples are not allowed to leave the sect. They won't be able to attack us," Zhao Lingfeng said. Chu Li said, "What if they are like us? I will keep an eye on them every day. No one will be able to destroy the sect protection formation," Zhao Lingfeng said. Chu Li nodded. "The scariest danger always comes from around us. Even if Profound Heart sect can attack us, they won't let it go. They will definitely take revenge in the future." "Who knows who will take revenge in the future?" Zhao Lingfeng said. "As long as you cultivate your martial arts well, you don't have to be afraid of Profound Heart sect." Chu Li said, "There's still something I don't understand. Why should we work with Azura? Azura are afraid of violence. Because they are immortal, they don't value their own lives. They don't value their own lives, let alone other people's lives. How can we work with people who are fearless? This matter involves a secret of the sect." Zhao Lingfeng thought for a while and looked at him. "You will know about it in the future. There's no harm in telling you in advance." Chuli was excited. He had taken the risk to ask this question. However, the more he took the risk, the more honest he seemed. It would not be good to beat around the bush. Zhao Lingfeng said, "Our heavenly demonic power can restrain Azura, but it doesn't mean that Azura can't fight back." Chuli nodded. Azura did not value their own lives. Once they used the mutual destruction technique, even the great heavenly demon would not be able to withstand it. Zhao Lingfeng said, "They're a big threat." Chapter 21:16. Chuli said, "Moreover, it's a great threat. They're plotting against the Grandmaster realm not only because of hatred, but also because they want to kill all the Celestials in the Grandmaster realm to help them cultivate and become stronger." Yes. Zhao Lingfeng nodded gently and said, "You are right. Everything they do is for power, for the sake of becoming stronger, not for the sake of wealth. They are different from us in the heavenly demon realm." Chuli said, "Once they break through the Grandmaster's boundary, with the help of the celestial being's vitality, they'll definitely become stronger. By then, I'm afraid they'll be able to break free from the restraints of our heavenly demonic power. When that happens, they'll definitely turn around and attack us. Our heavenly demonic realm will be the second Grandmaster's boundary." Zhao Lingfeng slowly said, "Indeed." Chuli said, "If that's the case, why do we still need to ally with the Azuras? Instead of allying with the Azuras, we might as well ally with the Grandmaster's realm and kill the Azuras. At the very least, we won't be able to strengthen them." Zhao Lingfeng sighed. "Azuras are indestructible. We won't be able to destroy them. Although the heavenly demonic power could restrain the Azura power technique, it could not kill Azuras. Azuras were not only strong in their inner energy, but also in their bodies. This was similar to the heavenly demonic power, which was why they were restrained by the heavenly demonic power. Even if the Azura didn't have the Azura power technique, once he used the self-destruction technique, the power would be extremely strong. Azuras were undying and indestructible, so they did not hesitate to use the self-destruction technique. Unlike the Sky Demon disintegration technique, when an Azura died for real, the Azura would use the self-destruction technique as a secret technique and not as a last resort. The Azura used a normal death to drag the Tianma to its death, which was what the Tianma feared the most. Chuli frowned and shook his head. There's no such thing as immortality and indestructibility in this world. It's just that we haven't found a way to do it yet. This must be a weakness that the Azuras have concealed. Once we find it, we'll be able to eliminate them." A smile appeared on Zhao Lingfeng's face. "I have indeed found this weakness." Chuli perked up and asked in surprise, "You found it?" Zhao Lingfeng said, "There's a legend that very few people in the Sky Demon realm know about." Chuli looked like he was all ears. Zhao Lingfeng said slowly, "An Azura who can cultivate the heavenly demonic power is an Azura who can destroy other Azuras." Chuli was stunned. He thought about it and shook his head. Azuras are born with the Azura power technique, right? It's the nemesis of the heavenly demonic power. How can you cultivate it? Zhao Lingfeng said, "Because of this, we were able to destroy the Azuras." Chuli immediately understood what he meant and frowned. "Sect leader, are you looking for this Azura?" Zhao Lingfeng nodded. Otherwise, why would he join forces with Azura? He had to first gain Azura's trust before he could understand them and pass on the heavenly demonic power to them. Azura hated the heavenly demonic power to the core, but he also coveted it. Once the heavenly demonic power reached the Azura realm, they would definitely cultivate it regardless of the cost. However, once an Azura cultivated the heavenly demonic power, it was tantamount to digging his own grave. Once the heavenly demonic power was cultivated, it was almost impossible to abolish it, so it meant that there was no way to cultivate the Azura power technique anymore. Azuras without the Azura power technique were powerful, but compared to other Azuras, they were no different from cripples. They would definitely commit suicide, which would weaken their strength and slow down their growth. Moreover, they could also find an Azura who could cultivate the heavenly demonic power and guide him to the heavenly demonic realm. Or they could find a way to force him to rebel and make him the enemy of all Azuras. It would not be easy for others to achieve this, but it was not difficult for the heavenly demons. Sowing discord and framing was the heavenly demon's specialty. Once they found an Azura who could cultivate the heavenly demonic power, they would not have to worry about falling out with the Azura and destroying them. Chuli said, "Sect leader, why go through so much trouble? Just make a deal with them and exchange the Azura power technique for the first stage of the heavenly demonic power. Let all Azuras cultivate it, and those who can cultivate it will naturally come to look for the following heart technique." This is a good idea, Zhao Lingfeng said slowly. But I'm afraid that the Azura won't fall for it. Chuli smiled. Sect leader, you underestimate the attractiveness of the heavenly demonic power. The Azura will definitely be eager to cultivate it and find a way to restrain it. If they want to restrain the heavenly demonic power, they have to cultivate the scripture of great light. Zhao Lingfeng laughed. But the scripture of great light can restrain the Azura power technique, so it's better for them to cultivate the heavenly demonic power. Chuli said, Sect leader, if we kill the Celestials to destroy the Azura, we'll become enemies with the Grandmasters. In the end, both sides will inevitably suffer. Do you think we can't defeat the Celestials? Zhao Lingfeng asked. Chuli shook his head. It'll be difficult. The Grandmasters are very strong. Although the heavenly demonic realm is strong, we don't have an overwhelming advantage. If we fight, I'm afraid that both sides will suffer. What if we use the Azura to weaken them and then attack? Zhao Lingfeng asked. Chuli shook his head. It'll be difficult. The Azura may seem strong, but it's difficult to harm their vitality. Although the Azura are immortal, and the Celestials will enter reincarnation once they die, the Celestial strength will not be weakened. Instead, they will become stronger due to their hatred. Zhao Lingfeng frowned. We can't weaken them? Chuli shook his head. As far as I know, using the Azura to fight the Celestials is useless. Instead of that, why don't we fight the Celestials directly? They're much stronger than the Azura. Zhao Lingfeng did not say anything. Chuli said, the heavenly demonic power is the only inheritance in the heavenly demonic realm, but there are many inheritances from the Celestials. Often, a genius will suddenly appear in an unimpressive sect, and they will be able to cultivate an earth-shattering technique. Such a genius will suddenly appear every few years. Yes, I've heard of it. Zhao Lingfeng nodded. Chuli said, moreover, the Celestials will occasionally have inheritances from the upper heaven, which are even more powerful. It's said that the Taihao Peak is an antique study from the upper heaven, and the other sects also have antique study from the upper heaven that can suppress the heavenly demonic realm. Zhao Lingfeng thought for a while, and after a moment of silence, he sighed. Yuan Si, I want you to return to the Grandmasters. Chuli was stunned, and he frowned. Sect leader, I'm afraid I have a treasure that can conceal the aura of your heavenly demonic power. Zhao Lingfeng said slowly. Chuli was surprised. There's such a treasure? Zhao Lingfeng said. I'm afraid there aren't many in the heavenly demonic realm. It's a gift from the heavens. Chuli quickly waved his hand. Sect leader, I think you should keep it. My abilities are very ordinary, and I can't take on such a big responsibility. If I lose this treasure, I'll be in big trouble. You've been to the Grandmasters, and you have a good understanding of the place. With this treasure, you'll be successful, and no one will be able to recognize you. Zhao Lingfeng said, I want you to enter the deepest part of the Grandmasters and enter the sect. Chuli smiled bitterly. Sect leader, it's very difficult for people with unknown identities to enter the sect. Ordinary sects don't have much power. The town of 10,000 swords. Zhao Lingfeng said slowly. Have you heard of it? Chuli quickly nodded. Of course, it's also one of the top sections. Chapter 21:17. Chuli looked at him in surprise. Could it be that he's also from our sect? No. Zhao Lingfeng shook his head. He's a disciple of the Dream faction. Chu still looked at him in surprise. Zhao Lingfeng said, "He was my friend when I was young, just like you and Muron Cho. Although we're not from the same faction, we're still close friends." Chu closed fist saluted. "I didn't expect you to have friends in the Dream faction. You're the only one allowed to make friends, but I'm not allowed to have friends." Zhao Lingfeng smiled. Chu hesitated. "Do you know about the heaven-shaking tower?" "Of course." Zhao Lingfeng said, "Don't worry. Not only can this treasure hide your aura, but it can also hide the secrets of the heavens. The heaven-shaking tower won't be able to predict your identity." Chu sighed in relief and smiled. "What treasure is this, sect leader?" "Earth Demon Stone." Zhao Lingfeng said, "Have you heard of it?" Chu thought about it and shook his head. Zhao Lingfeng said, "Not many people in the world know about this. It was given to me by my friend." Chu sighed. "It seems like your friend is really something. It's not strange for the Dream faction to have such a treasure. They're good at predicting. It's said to be from beyond the heavens." As he spoke, he pointed to the sky above his head. Chu was surprised. "Up to the heavens?" Zhao Lingfeng nodded slowly. "I don't know which heaven it is, but it doesn't belong to this realm. With this, you can safely stay in the beyond heavens realm and live as you please without worrying about your identity being exposed." Chu sighed. "The beyond heavens is good, but it's not safe to stay there. I'll always worry about the celestials seeing through me and killing me. It's better to come back here and sleep peacefully. With this, I'll be safe in the beyond heavens." "That's right." Zhao Lingfeng smiled. "But even with the Earth Demon Stone, you still have to be careful. There are many people with special powers in the beyond heavens. You can't be too careless." Chu nodded. "Then when should I go there?" "Maybe after a while," Zhao Lingfeng said. "Train with me for a while and improve your martial arts to the next level." Chu looked embarrassed. "Yes," Zhao Lingfeng said, "you're quite talented, and there's still a lot of room for you to improve your martial arts to this point, so you can't slack off. The wonders of the soaring angel aren't just in its movement techniques and claw techniques, but also in its inner energy. You have to integrate the movement techniques of the soaring angel into your inner energy cultivation method, and your inner energy will be like your body. Only then will you be able to improve your martial arts to the next level." Chu was slightly stunned, and his expression changed slightly. Chu was not surprised by Zhao Lingfeng's statement. The Grandmasters thought that Chu Li's aptitude was ordinary, either because they had higher standards or because they had a different focus. After all, the heavenly demonic power was unique, and it was completely different from the inner strength heart technique of the Grandmasters. The last two sentences of Zhao Lingfeng's words had moved him. As soon as he heard them, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and the subtleties of the soaring celestial fiend god art flowed through his mind. Chu immediately closed his eyes, sat cross-legged, and began to channel. The soaring angel quickly circulated in his body, and his inner energy was more than twice as fast as before. It really was like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, it had already completed 2 circulatory cycles. It was indescribably fast. With such a rapid speed, not only did his inner energy recover, but the speed of his movement techniques and martial arts had also increased a lot. Although it was not twice as fast, it was still a significant improvement. Just like that, the power of his martial arts would increase by a large margin, and it would also increase his cultivation level. The pure inner energy became more and more refined, like the gurgling of a clear spring or like a rapid river, the sound of it echoing endlessly in his ears. After an unknown amount of time, he felt that the increase of his inner energy had reached its limit, and he could not increase it any further. He slowly opened his eyes and saw that his surroundings were empty. Zhao Lingfeng was no longer there. He sat in the middle of the basilica, and there was not a single sound in the empty basilica. The bright moonlight fell on the inside of the basilica, as if a layer of snow had been sprinkled on the ground, making the surroundings even more quiet. Chu squinted his eyes as he thought about the soaring divine demon technique. He shook his head and sighed. He had underestimated the soaring divine demon technique in Zhao Lingfeng. Zhao Lingfeng really did have wisdom and a deep understanding of martial arts that ordinary people did not have. Listening to the words of a wise man was better than reading books for 10 years, and a word of advice from a famous master was better than years of hard work. If Zhao Lingfeng had not pointed it out, no matter how high Chu Li's comprehension was, he would not have been able to understand it, let alone cultivate the soaring angel to its ultimate state. He would not have been able to unleash 100% of the soaring angel's power. Sometimes experience could not be comprehended, and a word of advice saved years of hard work. Chu Li could not help but be impressed, and the importance of a famous master could be seen. When he thought about this, he thought about Shao Qi and Sun Mingwei. They had a famous master at Taihao Peak, and their cultivation level must have improved greatly. He did not know if they could catch up to him, so he had to work hard too. Lu Yurong and Shao Shi had suffered enough in the lower realm. Sometimes he felt guilty, but he could not interfere. He collected his thoughts and left the basilica to look for Zhao Lingfeng. With the omniscient mirror, he found him at the highest point of the mountain. A bright moon hung in the sky, and Zhao Lingfeng sat on a big rock at the top of the mountain. He did not move, and the moonlight sprinkled on him like water. He looked lonely and cold, as if he was the only person in the world. Chu Li thought about it and walked up to the mountain. He did not make a sound, but he did not touch the ground. It was as if his body was weightless, like he was floating in water. Soon, he reached the top of the mountain and went to Zhao Lingfeng's side. Sect leader. He came in front of Zhao Lingfeng and gave him a fist salute. You don't have to thank me. Zhao Lingfeng opened his eyes, which shone brightly as if he could see through Chu Li's organs. He said gently, "Your comprehension is amazing, and I can see through it. It's rare." Chu Li gave him a fist salute and did not say anything. Zhao Lingfeng sighed and said, "I am somewhat regretting having such comprehension ability." Chu Li asked, "What are you regretting, sect leader?" "People like you will be delayed in the Grandmaster's realm," Zhao Lingfeng said. "You should focus on your cultivation. That's the way to the light." Chu Li smiled. "Going to the Grandmaster's realm will be a different environment. It will help me understand martial arts." "That's true," Zhao Lingfeng said slowly. "How about this? Go to the Dream Faction and deliver a letter for me." "Yes." Chu Li agreed without hesitation. Zhao Lingfeng nodded in satisfaction. He was satisfied with Chu Li's straightforwardness. He said gently, "The Earth Demonic Stone belongs to the Dream Faction. If you take this letter, you will get the Earth Demonic Stone." Chu Li smiled. Zhao Lingfeng said, "The disciples of the Dream Faction are a little arrogant, so don't get into conflict with them. Otherwise, the Earth Demonic Stone will be unavoidable. If you can't get it, it will delay your plans, and you won't be able to go to the town of 10,000 swords." Chu Li said slowly, "I understand. Your cultivation level has improved a lot. It will be difficult for you to improve even if you sit here and cultivate. You should leave tomorrow," Zhao Lingfeng said. Chu Li nodded. "Sect leader, are you cultivating here?" Chapter 21:18. Chu Li said, "I'm also worried that the Profound Heart sect will return the favor. If that happens, we'll become a laughingstock." I've been guarding against that," Zhao Lingfeng said. "Fortunately, the people in the sect are simple, so you don't have to spend too much energy. Be careful on your journey. Don't let the Profound Heart sect people target you." Chu Li nodded. "Don't worry, sect leader. I'll change my appearance." Zhao Lingfeng said, "Come and get the letter tomorrow." "Understood." Chu Li closed fists, saluted, and tactfully took his leave. The next morning, he first cultivated the flying demon technique, then went to the Dark Temple and saw Hu Tianlai flipping through some scrolls. As the leader of the Dark Temple, he had a lot of work to do and seemed to be busier than the sect leader. The disciple outside the temple announced his arrival, and Chu Li entered and closed fists saluted. "Masters Junior." Hu Tianlai looked up at him and put down the scroll. "What are you doing here?" "Masters Junior, I taught Junior Brother from Spirit Mountain a lesson yesterday." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. "I'm afraid he'll hold a grudge against me. Just teach him a lesson. What's there to be afraid of? Hu Tianlai said. Are you afraid of him? Chu Li smiled. I'm not afraid of Junior Brother Hu. I'm afraid of Masters Junior. Don't worry. I can't wait for you to suppress his arrogance. Hu Tianlai waved his hand. Also, I'm investigating him. If there's a problem, I won't let it go. Chu Li nodded and closed fist saluted. The sect leader asked me to deliver a letter to the Great Dream Sect. The Great Dream Sect. Hu Tianlai frowned. Chu Li asked, Is there something wrong? We have to follow the sect leader's orders, Hu Tianlai said. But the Great Dream Sect isn't an ordinary sect. Chu Li nodded. They have more freedom, and no one dares to provoke them. In any case, be careful and don't go against their wishes. The disciples of the Great Dream Sect have strange tempers. Hu Tianlai shook his head. It's hard for outsiders to interact with them. Chu Li said, Yes. Go. Hu Tianlai waved his hand. Chu Li fist saluted and left. He soon arrived at the Basilica of the Faction and saw Zhao Lingfeng standing in front of the window with his hands clasped behind his back. When Zhao Lingfeng saw Chu Li enter, he pointed at the desk. Chu Li picked up the letter on the table and stuffed it into his pocket. He gave a fist salute. Sect leader, I'll be on my way. Do you really think there's something wrong with Hu Lingshan? Zhao Lingfeng asked. Chu Li was stunned. He did not expect Hu Tianlai to report to Zhao Lingfeng. Zhao Lingfeng asked, Is there really a problem? Chu Li thought about it and slowly shook his head. It's just an inexplicable feeling. I just feel that there's something wrong with him. I can't be sure if he's a spy from the Profound Heart sect. You've got guts. Zhao Lingfeng said, If it had been someone else other than Junior Hu, you would have been in big trouble. Suspecting someone without any evidence is just nonsense. Chu Li smiled. I believe in Masters Junior Hu. Zhao Lingfeng nodded. He admired Chu Li's loyalty and magnanimity. He felt that he had not misjudged Chu Li. Chu Li gave a fist salute and turned to leave. As soon as he was out of the sect, he disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared at the peak of a mountain. Then, his figure changed. In the blink of an eye, he became a middle-aged man. He looked ordinary and could not be found in the crowd. His expression changed slightly. He turned to look at the void in front of him. The void rippled, and 4 elders in black appeared. Chu Li turned to look at the void on his left. The void rippled, and another 4 elders in black appeared. He looked at the void on his right. The void rippled again, and another 4 elders in black appeared. Chu Li turned to look behind him. Another 4 elders in black appeared. The 16 elders in black had formed an encirclement. The heavenly demonic universe lock had locked onto him, and he could not move away. Although he still had the void-breaching bead, which could break the heavenly demonic universe lock and return his sect, he did not plan to use it now. He suddenly flashed. His figure flashed a few times, and before they could react, he had escaped the encirclement of the 16 elders. This was beyond their imagination. They did not expect his body movement technique to be so fast. He could not use the void diversion, but he could still be so fast. They were caught off guard and let him escape the encirclement. They pounced on him angrily. Chu Li chuckled. It was as if there was a rope pulling on his back, and he suddenly pulled 100 feet away from them. They sneered and shook their heads. Suddenly, they disappeared and appeared around Chu Li in the next moment, forming an encirclement again. They could use the void diversion technique. No matter how fast Chu Li's body movement technique was, they were not afraid. Therefore, they were very sure that with the heavenly demonic universe lock, Chu Li would not be able to escape from them. Chu Li retreated again and escaped from their encirclement. The 16 elders became more and more angry. Chu Li's light body technique was beyond their imagination, but they still could not surround him. Therefore, they used the void diversion while attacking him with their palms. They wanted to surround him and form an encirclement. They were sure that once they formed an encirclement, the boy in front of them would definitely die. Chu Li had already cultivated the flying demon technique to the point of perfection. The strength of his light body technique was beyond imagination. It could be as gentle as the wind and silent, or as fast as lightning, as if there was a powerful force tearing it apart. The 16 elders' palms were like a thunderstorm. Their body movement technique was extremely fast, but Chuli could always escape from their encirclement without being touched by them. He sped towards the direction of the Great Dream Sect. The 16 elders were like maggots attached to bones, following closely behind him. He could not afford to be careless. Once he slowed down, they would form an encirclement and attack him like a thunderstorm. Chuli kept running, and they kept chasing. After a day and a night, Chuli was still full of energy. In fact, his speed was even faster. Under such a desperate situation, his potential was stimulated, and the flying divine demon technique improved by leaps and bounds. He became more and more skillful, and he reached the state where his body was the first to move. Before his mind moved, his body reacted first, and he was one step faster. Under their relentless pursuit, he was leisurely and contented. Occasionally, he would take out a water bag from his waist and drink a few mouthfuls. Other than that, he did not sleep, rest, or eat. The 16 elders behind him were even more leisurely. One of them suddenly disappeared, and then reappeared with food and water bags. He passed them to the other 15 elders, so they did not have to worry about food and water while chasing. Chuli was not in a hurry to summon Morong Cho. In this situation, even if he did, it would be useless. The two of them could not deal with the 16 elders. The only thing they could do was to escape. As long as he escaped to the Great Dream Sect, they would not dare to chase after him. Compared to the Demon Sword Sect, the Great Dream Sect was even stranger and more unpredictable. Moreover, their way of doing things was not inferior to the Demon Sword Sect. The Profound Heart Sect dared to provoke the Flying Divine Sect, but they did not dare to provoke the Great Dream Sect. The next morning, Chuli was still running in high spirits. Suddenly, a middle-aged man appeared in front of him. The sudden appearance made Chu-Li's body speed up, and he moved 100 feet away to avoid the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man suddenly let out a long whistle. The whistle was like thunder, shaking people's souls. Chu-Li's Mavarokuna's immovable Buddha opened his eyes and instantly got rid of the effect of the whistle. However, he could not help but stop for a moment. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.